What would you do if your youth was just a flashy but suffocating glass cage? For Yeo Joon, he chooses to wear the mask of a smiling rich kid. He spends money without blinking to buy fake praise, all to bury the dark shadow of his childhood abuse at the hands of his own father. On the complete opposite end, Nam Soo-hyun chooses to seal his heart away. The crushing weight of being his family breadwinner forces him to chew on dry rice balls. He distances himself from people and despises those who pursued measure worth with money. These two carry contrasting pains and are destined to be parallel lines full of mutual dislike. That is, until a fateful group project appears. It binds them together with Kim So-bin, a female student carrying a deep emotional wound from being abandoned in the past. Starting out as broken souls, how will they break down their thorny defenses to truly understand and heal each other? Let's step right into the story. The blonde idol, in the eyes of the girls, is Yeo Joon. On the outside, he is incredibly handsome. He is also super rich and knows exactly how to win over the older students. Because of this, everyone wants to get close to him, not just the girls. Yeo Joon has a radiant appearance and always flashes a bright smile at everyone. For him, the easiest thing to do is buy friendships with his wealth. He doesn't care if he has to pay for fake friends. He knows full well they only hang out with him for his money, and he is fine with that. All he cares about is having people surround him constantly, but no one knows his secret. The guy who is always praised and surrounded by friends is actually incredibly lonely and abandoned by his parents. The only thing he can do to escape his dark and cold home is to go out partying at bars with those fake friends. Later that day at school, Yeo Joon runs into a guy who will eventually change his entire life. An older student warns him not to mess with this young man. He is known as the weirdest person in college. This student is Soo-hyun. He has been at the school for 3 years, but no one has ever managed to get close and talk to him. When class starts, the professor walks in to take attendance, but Soo-hyun is still fast asleep. Yeo Joon ignores the earlier warning. He tries to wake the sleeping guy up but accidentally spills coffee on his shoes. Panicking, he wants to fix his mistake right away. However, the older guy completely brushes it off. Soo-hyun doesn't care about the stain on his shoes at all. This actually makes Yeo Joon feel even more guilty. After class, he tries to chase after him to offer compensation. The thing Yeo Joon is most confident in is his money. But to his surprise, Soo-hyun flat out rejects him. He even mocks the rich kid, calling him a walking cash machine who only lives behind a fake smile. This remark hits Yeo Joon hard. Just like that, Soo-hyun's image is deeply burned into his mind. That evening, his group of friends invites Yeo Joon to a club. Their real goal is to make him pay for all the alcohol and fruit platters. Among them is a junior named Kim Hee-ji. She has special feelings for Yeo Joon and is really upset that the group is forcing him to pay for a second round of partying, knowing she is the crush of the chubby student Oh Jung-ho. Yeo Joon smartly avoids getting too involved with her. He quickly breaks up their argument and cheerfully runs off to buy hangover medicine. Little does he know, Hee-ji secretly follows him. Her words are full of hints about her feelings for him. However, Yeo Joon cleverly dodges her confession while maintaining their normal friendship. With just a few smooth words, he gets her to back off. By pure coincidence, this convenience store is exactly where Soo-hyun works part-time. Now, in his eyes, Yeo Joon earns a new nickname as a player. The rich kid purposely uses his gold card to pay, hoping to bribe Soo-hyun into being his friend. But the cashier absolutely hates rich people who like to show off. Despite getting a harsh scolding, Yeo Joon keeps a smile on his face. He secretly hopes to run into Soo-hyun again. After all, it is rare to meet someone so bluntly honest. Yeo Joon wants to be surrounded by friends, but he also avoids getting too close to them. He really doesn't want to take these two drunk guys back to his place, so he makes up an excuse, saying his parents are home and it would be inconvenient. After successfully sending them away, he catches a taxi home. On his way back, he spots Soo-hyun still working hard at his shift. The living conditions of these two guys are truly worlds apart. The next day at school, a female student suddenly rushes out of nowhere and crashes straight into Yeo Joon's arms. She is a junior named So-bin. Realizing her hands are placed awkwardly, she feels embarrassed and keeps apologizing. Yeo Joon keeps his bright smile and friendly vibe, but deep down he assumes this girl is secretly crushing on him. In reality, So-bin went to the faculty office today to beg an older student for a favor. This person is a teaching assistant for Professor Song. She desperately asks the assistant for a spot to gather materials for the female professor. Even though she is already a junior, she hasn't gained any work experience yet. She is terrified that she won't be able to find a job after graduation. Professor Song is very famous on campus. Working for her would be a huge boost to Bact. So-bin resume. The assistant feels awkward because the position is already taken by a freshman named Yeo Joon. She suggests that if So-bin can convince the freshman to give up the job, she can recommend her to the professor. It just so happens the school is organizing a camping trip to welcome the new students. So-bin decides to sign up as a guide to get close to Yeo Joon. So-bin has a best friend named Hong Chan-ki. Both of them used to be in the same class as Soo-hyun. They are both quite intimidated by his cold exterior. Seeing that Soo-hyun also signed up as a guide, Chan-ki instantly gets scared and makes an excuse to run away. That leaves So-bin alone to attend the camping trip. Throughout the entire trip, she constantly stares at Yeo Joon. He obviously notices this. This makes him even more certain that she is secretly in love with him. When night falls, the freshmen start partying and eating wildly. Once they are done, they shamelessly leave all the mess for the two juniors to clean up. So-bin takes this chance to ask Soo-hyun about her grade. They had worked on a group project together the previous year. Back then, he got a perfect score. She had emailed her part of the assignment to him but ended up with a poor grade. Soo-hyun explains that he never received any email from her. Because of that, he assumed she just slacked off. At that moment, a drunk freshman runs outside and starts causing a scene. This forces Soo-hyun to drag the guy back to his room. So-bin has to temporarily put her doubts aside. She really wants to step in and help out, but both she and Yeo Joon get completely ignored by the cold senior. Taking advantage of the moment they are alone, Yeo Joon questions the older girl. He wonders why she keeps peeking at him and jokes that if she keeps it up, he might just fall for her. So-bin is still stuttering, trying to explain herself, when Yeo Joon is suddenly called into a tent. It turns out the drunk guy from earlier is screaming his name. He uses this chance to try and buddy up with Soo-hyun again. This time, the older student directly exposes the rich kid's deep loneliness. He points out that the freshman is so lonely he needs to be surrounded by people, even if he knows those friendships are completely fake. Being hit right in the weak spot makes Yeo Joon furious. He yells at Soo-hyun, calling him insecure. He mocks the senior, saying he avoids making friends just because he is poor. Soo-hyun completely ignores him and coldly walks away. Right then, the drunk student stumbles out. He wants to drag Yeo Joon somewhere else to talk in private. It turns out the guy is drunk because he just got rejected. Ironically, the girl he likes is actually into Yeo Joon. The two boys start getting into a physical fight. Yeo Joon gets hit unexpectedly, which instantly triggers vivid memories of his childhood abuse. He is incredibly dizzy and doesn't know what to do. Before she realizes it, So-bin bravely rushes in and stands right in front of him. From point A, Soo-hyun also quickly steps in to stop the crazy guy from doing any more damage. So-bin gently takes Yeo Joon to a quiet corner to carefully treat his wounds. The stubborn kid keeps asking why she was staring at him all day. Seeing the perfect opportunity, So-bin finally reveals her true intentions. She admits she knows taking someone else's job is wrong, but she is already a junior about to graduate with zero practical experience. Meanwhile, Yeo Joon is just a freshman with plenty of time to build his resume. To everyone's surprise, he instantly agrees to give up position. However, he sets a condition. So-bin has to become his genuine, close friend. After handling everything, Soo-hyun goes back and checks his old email inbox. He finally discovers that So-bin's assignment was actually sitting right there in the spam folder. The next day, he actively seeks her out to offer a sincere apology. He admits his mistake for not checking his inbox carefully, which caused her to receive an unfair grade. Since the matter is already in the past, So-bin doesn't feel too upset about it. She explains she just wanted her hard work to be properly recognized. Soo-hyun immediately promises that if he ever gets the chance, he will definitely make it up to her. Soon after, Yeo Joon slowly approaches them. He demands that So-bin fulfill her promise of being his best friend by going bungee jumping with him. Unfortunately, she has a weak heart and a severe fear of heights. Standing on the towering platform makes her whole body tremble as she shuts her eyes tightly. But for the sake of a precious career opportunity, she forces herself to go along with his crazy request. A moment later, he seems to shift into a completely different person. He drops the people-pleaser act and suddenly becomes incredibly reliable. This makes So-bin feel safe enough to take the leap with him. The staff straps them tightly together. Yeo Joon unexpectedly pulls her into a tight hug and recklessly jumps off. The intense thrill of the ride and their close physical contact makes So-bin start developing a soft spot for him. The next day at school, Yeo Joon promises to head to the faculty office to officially hand over his spot to So-bin, but he completely didn't expect to bump into his older brother on the way. The two siblings never really had a close relationship. His brother is Yeo Joon Won, who just transferred there as a professor. He warns his younger brother not to act like they know each other in front of others. This entire exchange is accidentally witnessed by Soo-hyun from a distance. That evening, Yeo Joon returns to his cold home to quietly endure his loneliness. Meanwhile, Soo-hyun has to continue his exhausting part-time jobs. Surprisingly, this cold guy has a very fierce best friend named Wang Young-ran. She loves dragging him out for beers, and often shares her ups and downs with him. The brutal grind of working leaves Soo-hyun with only a few short hours of sleep each night. After that, he has to rush straight to campus for his classes. Unexpectedly, the professor cancels class today. Instead of going home, Yeo Joon sticks around to wait for Soo-hyun and keeps tailing him. He keeps repeating the same old lines, begging to be friends. Soo-hyun is completely sick of hearing it. He rejects the freshman countless times but just cannot shake off this annoying tale. While Yeo Joon is busy pestering him, So-bin spots them. Feeling like his life has just been saved, Soo-hyun turns around and leaves immediately. It turns out So-bin came looking for Yeo Joon to ask why he hasn't gone to the office to fulfill his promise yet. He quickly clarifies that he never intended to break his word. He explains that running into his brother earlier messed with his emotions, making him completely forget about the promise. Right after explaining, he takes her straight to the teaching assistant to make his request clear. Finally, So-bin officially secures her dream job. Once everything is settled, she happily shares an umbrella with Yeo Joon. On the way home, he thoughtfully tilts the umbrella toward her, leaving his own sleeve totally soaked in the rain. At the same time, Soo-hyun hurries back to his tiny rented room. He also has to take care of his rebellious younger brother, Nam Soo-hyun. Looking at their incredibly meager meal, Soo-hyun feels a pang of sadness and thinks about how freely the rich kid spends his money. This shows that deep down, Yeo Joon's image is also stuck in his head. Both guys openly criticize each other's lifestyle, but internally, they desperately crave what the other has. One wants enough money to never worry about survival again. The other just wants to live without the fear of loneliness, without having to beg people to care about him. As for So-bin, she lives in the university dorms. Coincidentally, Young Ran is her older roommate. This tough girl has enough authority to make the arrogant red-haired Gong Mi-ju obediently massage her legs. After pleasing her roommate, So-bin hurries over to Professor Song to start her new job. The female professor clearly shows a lot of contempt for her. She points out that the junior hasn't achieved anything remarkable so far. However, just because Yeo Joon personally recommended her, the professor reluctantly accepts her. Truth be told, she only favored the freshman in the first place because she has a secret crush on his professor brother. Feeling down, So-bin returns to the dorms and is quickly comforted by her close roommate with some drinks. Mi-ju flat out refuses to join the fun because she just broke up with her boyfriend and is in no mood to eat. Meanwhile, the group of toxic friends somehow manages to track down Yeo Joon's private apartment. Even though he firmly refuses to have guests over, they violently push the door open and trash the place. Always having to read the room and force a fake smile makes him feel extremely depressed. The only bright spot is that he can genuinely smile when he is with So-bin. Right now, she is feeling super insecure about whether she is actually capable of being a good assistant for Professor Song. Yeo Joon warmly encourages her to believe in herself. She suddenly realizes he is really hard to figure out. Sometimes he acts completely different from the persona he usually shows the world. When he gets to class, Yeo Joon firmly refuses to sit with the two annoying seniors. He also stops buying them coffee and gives his gifts to Soo-hyun instead. However, the older student coldly rejects the gesture. He even decides to change seats because he feels incredibly bothered. The professor walks in and announces that the final exam will be replaced by a group project. The students are free to form their own groups to complete the task. Yeo Joon is super quick to ask the professor to put him in the same group as Soo-hyun. The two annoying seniors quickly chime in and ask to join them as well. After class, Soo-hyun approaches So-bin and invites her to work with his group. He doesn't hesitate to stand right in front of the two lazy guys and calls them out for coasting off others. Because of that, he really needs a hardworking and reliable person like So-bin on the team. The team then heads to a coffee shop to divide up the tasks. At first, everyone agrees to nominate Soo-hyun as the team leader, but Jung-ho feels that since he is the oldest, the leadership role should naturally belong to him. However, once everyone hears So-bin's thoughts on the presentation topic, things change. They realize she has great leadership skills and officially elect her as the leader. Once everything is settled, Soo-hyun coldly leaves first, making Jung-ho hate him even more. Hae-ji starts recounting a story from the beginning of her freshman year. Back then, she and a friend were the two most popular girls on campus, and they actively tried to get to know Soo-hyun. They hinted that he should treat them to a nice dinner. She was sure she had made her romantic feelings obvious enough. Instead, he turned around and scolded her for being a freeloader. Ever since that incident, no one in the whole school dared to talk to him again. Hearing this actually cheers Yeo Joon up. He realizes he isn't the only one Soo-hyun dislikes. His mood stays great until he suddenly gets a phone call from his mother. She coldly demands he come home right away because they are expecting important guests the next day. But she cruelly adds another hurtful comment. She tells him to leave immediately after dinner because the family doesn't welcome his presence. This heartless remark leaves Yeo Joon deeply traumatized. He just sits there in a daze until night falls. He slowly walks out to the balcony for some fresh air and spots his neighbor in the apartment across the way. At this point, he has no idea this guy is Mom. So-bin's best friend, Chan-ki, flashes a warm smile and enthusiastically shows Yeo Joon some breathing exercises to help relieve stress. It turns out this neighbor is quite the ladies' man. His house is never short of women calling out his name. After trying to regain his composure, Yeo Joon carefully picks out a suit to prepare for tomorrow night family dinner. The next morning is their scheduled group meeting. Sadly, only 3 people show up. So-bin tries her best to text the others constantly, but they completely ignore her messages. Even though she knows they are irresponsible, she just quietly takes it. She accepts doing their share of the work herself. This makes Soo-hyun incredibly angry and frustrated. He bluntly states that he doesn't fit in with this team workflow at all. He immediately packs his bags and decides to leave. Right as he steps outside, he unfortunately runs into the 2 useless seniors who just got back from partying. They are still stumbling around drunk. They immediately start throwing toxic insults at Soo-hyun. Unable to stand it anymore, So-bin speaks up to call out their behavior. Yeo Joon also rushes in to break up the fight. Jung-ho has been holding a grudge for a long time. He violently shoves Yeo Joon to the ground. He loudly curses at the kid, calling him a stupid rich boy. These violent words and actions trigger the terrible memories of his past abuse all over again. Soo-hyun tries to walk away but gets aggressively grabbed by the senior. The guy punches him hard in the face, leaving him totally dizzy. By now, Yeo Joon completely loses his cool. He screams at them to stop hitting people, and only then does the chaos finally stop. So-bin gently steps forward to treat the wound on Soo-hyun's face. She decides to use the promise he made to make things up to her. She begs him not to quit the team. He thinks about it and nods, but with a condition. He demands that she divide the work completely fairly and transparently. Anyone who refuses to work will absolutely get 0 points. She sincerely promises him that she will never act weak like that ever again. Back to Yeo Joon, he is wandering aimlessly down the street when he bumps into his older brother again. His cold brother forces him into the car to go see their parents. During the suffocating family dinner, Yeo Joon has to wear a wig to hide his dyed hair. But even a small thing like that still isn't enough to please his father. He openly shows his disgust for his useless son. His cold brother only ended up losing all his emotions because their parents forced him to be perfect. Both brothers constantly strive to meet their parents' demands. In the end, one became successful but completely numb. The other has to seek out fake affection to avoid feeling abandoned. After dinner, the father cruelly vents all his anger and frustration on Yeo Joon. His mother strokes his red cheek but curses him, saying he should never have been born. She ruthlessly states that having one brilliant eldest son is more than enough for her. She gets even more furious when she accidentally discovers his dyed hair. He begs his mother to stop hating him. However, she remains freezing cold and flat out kicks him out of the house. Heartbroken, Yeo Joon walks over to his brother's car. He begs him to drive him to a salon to dye his hair back to black, but all he gets in return is dead silence. Extremely disappointed, he steps out of the car. He pulls out his phone and calls his friends to go get wasted. The people he always considered his close friends are actually just waiting for him to pass out. They are worried that if he doesn't wake up, no one will pay the tab. Soon after, they start showing their jealousy over his wealth. Yeo Joon was faking being drunk and hears everything, making him feel even worse. That night, he stands dangerously close to the edge of a lake while calling Soo-hyun. He begs the senior to come talk to him quickly before he commits suicide. Soo-hyun is busy working, so he can only rush to call So-bin. The moment she hears the news, she frantically runs out to find him. As soon as he sees her running toward him, the kid flashes a bright smile and collapses into her arms. Choking back tears, he begs So-bin to like him. He thinks that, other than her, no one else in the world could ever genuinely care for him. She has to apologize and honestly explains that she already has someone else in her heart. While she is feeling super flustered and awkward, thankfully Soo-hyun arrives just in time to carry him away. She manages to contact his friends and finally finds out his real address. It takes both of them forever to get his fingerprint to unlock the door. Soo-hyun rushes to the bathroom to clean up the vomit on his shirt. Looking at the spacious, fully equipped bathroom, he can't help but think about his own run-down home. He suddenly feels a deep sense of bitterness. Their lives truly are worlds apart. When he wakes up the next day, Yeo Joon sees 2 half-empty glasses on the table and vaguely remembers someone brought him home. He notices the bathroom slippers have been used, and there is hair in the sink. He instantly realizes he accidentally threw up on someone. Checking his call logs, he figures out the truth. The 2 people he bothered last night were So-bin and Soo-hyun. When he gets to campus, he feels super annoyed seeing her chatting happily with Chan-ki. At the same time, his brother is hiding nearby, secretly watching him. He stares at the girl his little brother is interested in. The female professor happens to see this and mistakenly assumes the brother has a crush on So-bin. She immediately calls her into the office and insults her, calling her a flirt who seduces people for career gains. So-bin has no idea what is going on, but endures the humiliation because she doesn't want to lose her job. On the other side, Yeo Joon walks into class. The 2 awful seniors act like nothing ever happened. They shamelessly try to act buddy-buddy with him again, but his eyes are locked entirely on Soo-hyun. He had checked his phone and saw he called the senior for exactly 18 seconds. He is dying to know if he said anything stupid while drunk. After class, he ignores the seniors and frantically chases after Soo-hyun, but once he gets outside, he completely loses track of him. He decides to head to the cafeteria to eat with So-bin. Yeo Joon casually tries to find out who her secret crush is. She gets startled, thinking he was too drunk to remember, forcing her to spill her secret. After eating, he takes her to his own secret hideout. It is a quiet place with a beautiful, crystal-clear lake right there. So-bin finally admits the guy she likes is her best friend, Chan-ki. She also reveals her plan to bravely confess her feelings to him very soon. That evening, she runs straight to Chan-ki place to find him, but he had already gone out partying a long time ago. She doesn't hesitate to play the role of a perfect housewife. She cleans his whole apartment and even thoughtfully hangs up his laundry. When she steps out onto the balcony, she accidentally catches Yeo Joon's eye. Now he finally knows she is Chan-ki's best friend. Later that night, So-bin texts him for a favor. She asks him to tag along and help her pick out a pretty dress for her. Confession: even though it completely annoys him, he still agrees to go with her the next day. Thanks to his great sense of style, they perfectly pick out a pearl hairpin and a yellow dress. Out of his rich kid habit, Yeo Joon pulls out his card to pay, but she quickly stops him. Seeing the sparkly bracelet Chan-ki once gave her makes him feel even more upset. She generously offers to treat him to a nice meal as a thank you, but he tells her he only needs an ice cream to be happy. Upon returning home, he runs into Chan-ki again. After some polite small talk, he finds out a strange girl is coming over to Chan-ki place tomorrow. Walking inside, he immediately texts So-bin, telling her to confess the very next day. He wants her to see the true playboy face of the guy she has been dreaming about with her own eyes. The next day, So-bin confidently wears her new dress to the group meeting. Everyone is totally stunned by her beautiful new look. After the meeting, she rushes to a candle shop. She carefully buys everything needed for a truly romantic confession. Then she heads straight to his apartment, but the guy is still not home. While waiting, she beautifully arranges everything to look perfect. However, when she opens the door to welcome him, the person standing there is actually his real girlfriend. Flustered, she makes an excuse that she went to the wrong apartment and runs out. But halfway down the stairs, she unluckily bumps right into Chan-ki walking up. The girlfriend also chases after her to return a bag she left behind. While she is caught in this incredibly awkward situation, Yeo Joon luckily calls her. She uses it to invent the perfect excuse. She explains she was actually heading to Yeo Joon's place, but accidentally turned into the wrong apartment out of habit. Escaping the two of them, she falls deep into memories of playing with Chan-ki when they were kids. The friendship bracelet he gave her when she was 8 is something she has treasured until now. She has no idea what to think anymore. She dazedly makes her way to Yeo Joon's place and bursts into tears. The deep feelings she hid for so many years were finally brave enough to surface, only to be forced back into hiding. Seeing her so heartbroken is too much for Yeo Joon to bear. He openly tells her to use him to get 2 towels. over Chan-ki quickly. After thinking for a moment, she nods in agreement. Waiting for just that, he immediately rips off her old friendship bracelet and throws it away. They stand side by side on the balcony, facing Chan-ki placed directly. Seeing her next to another guy makes Chan-ki visibly uncomfortable. He completely refuses to believe she got a new boyfriend so fast. Yeo Joon doesn't hesitate to pull her into a close hug to mark his territory. Witnessing this leaves Chan-ki totally frozen. He suddenly feels a massive sense of loss and emptiness. As the new couple affectionately walks inside, Chan-ki's ex-girlfriend walks out of his apartment. It turns out they actually agreed to break up last month. She was only there to pack up her stuff. She bluntly warns him that if he keeps acting so close with So-bin, he will never find anyone to marry in the future. He smiles bitterly and replies that he doesn't feel the need to get married anyway. Inside the apartment, So-bin is still feeling incredibly heartbroken. Yeo Joon steps up to safely escort her all the way back to her dorm. While they are walking, Chan-ki calls her phone. He snatches the phone right out of her hand and firmly hangs up. He tells her to try and learn from Soo-hyun's personality. He says she needs to act colder toward others to avoid dealing with so much trouble. Just like that, they walk down the street while jokingly mimicking Soo-hyun's grumpy remarks. Speaking of Soo-hyun's life, he is desperately trying to earn money for his little brother police exam. He runs everywhere looking for extra shifts, but sadly, no one wants to hire a college student who can only work part-time. Out of options, he painfully forces down dry rice balls just to save every single penny. His best friend, Young Ran, accidentally finds out the truth from his younger brother. Hearing that he is desperately looking for a job that provides room and board makes her furious. She storms straight to his workplace to find him, but seeing his exhausted and drained appearance fills her with deep sympathy. She refuses to watch her best friend destroy his health. She secretly calls in a favor to get him a decent job. The next day, an old classmate suddenly returns to campus looking for him. He easily recognizes this guy as someone who used to relentlessly chase after Young Ran. They were never close, but now the guy is actively seeking him out. He acts all nice and introduces an incredibly attractive job to him. Soo-hyun curiously follows the address to meet the employer. The benefits are amazing, and it even includes free room and board. However, the moment he finds out someone secretly pulled strings to get him the job, he flat out rejects it. He chooses to move to a construction site to do grueling manual labor instead. When Young Ran hears this news, she is absolutely furious. She furiously marches straight to the construction site to demand an explanation. After getting to the bottom of it, she finally understands his reasoning. It turns out he didn't want her to owe a favor to a guy she had already rejected. That is why he stubbornly refused the easy job. He was terrified that if he accepted, she would eventually have to repay that man. She would definitely have to do things she didn't want to do. He is terrified of owing her such a massive debt of gratitude. He simply doesn't have the time or money to ever pay her back. She feels completely helpless against her best friend's stubbornness, but she has no other way to solve it. Heartbroken, she has no choice but to let him continue to suffer. The very next day, Soo-hyun's younger brother, Gu-hyun, shows up at the university to look for him. The moment he lays eyes on Mi-ju, the kid instantly falls head over heels in love. Her radiant beauty leaves him so utterly captivated that he clumsily trips and falls. Trying to salvage his pride and not lose face in front of a beautiful girl, the kid immediately drops to the ground and starts doing push-ups right on the spot. The group of girls gathered around bursts into giggles. They easily notice how this lovesick boy's eyes are completely glued to Mi-ju. At the exact same time, Soo-hyun is frantically running around campus searching for his younger brother. On his way, he accidentally bumps into Yeo Joon. The rich kid is absolutely thrilled and overjoyed because they happen to be wearing matching outfits today. Hearing this, Soo-hyun immediately strips off his jacket right then and there. Then he unleashes a furious scolding that leaves Yeo Joon's ears burning red. Despite that, the kid stubbornly whines and demands that Soo-hyun treat him to lunch. Just as Soo-hyun is about to open his mouth to yell again, he spots his incredibly annoying younger brother. The kid is currently trying his hardest to show off and impress the girls. Gu-hyun does push-ups until he is completely out of breath and finally has to give up and stand up. Mi-ju friends start playing matchmaker, egging them on. They tell Mi-ju to ask the boy right in front of her to be a fitting model for her design project. The moment Gu-hyun hears this, he gets incredibly excited. He is just about to strip off his jacket to show off his fit body when his older brother rushes in to stop him just in time. When Mi-ju sees Soo-hyun again, she is completely surprised. She recalls the very first time she met him, which was during a trip to the supermarket to buy drinks. Back then, she accidentally dropped a water bottle, causing it to shatter completely. On top of that, she was in a terrible mood because of a bad breakup. All of this made her feel so overwhelmed with self-pity that she burst into tears right there. Right at that moment, Soo-hyun mop happened to slide right up to where she was standing. Seeing such a handsome guy for the first time made Mi-ju stop crying instantly. She quickly hurried to the checkout counter to pay for the broken bottle. She even bought 2 brand new bottles of water, just to give to him. After that, she ran off in extreme embarrassment without saying a single word. Back in her dorm room, she couldn't stop thinking about Soo-hyun's sharp, chiseled face. Just remembering how she faced him made her cheeks flush deeply red. Mi-ju simply couldn't suppress that intense feeling of longing. The next day, she purposely dressed up looking absolutely gorgeous. She stood frozen outside the convenience store, trying to gather all her courage to walk inside and see Soo-hyun. Ironically, the person working the cash register that day was a completely different employee. This left her feeling incredibly disappointed, and she walked away in silence. Today, she finally gets to see Soo-hyun again. Seeing that he seems to be misunderstanding her intentions, she quickly speaks up to explain that she never meant to trick Gu-hyun into taking his clothes off. Soo-hyun acts like he barely cares about this trivial matter. To him, as long as there is no serious harm done, he is totally fine with letting it go. By this point, Yeo Joon has also moved right next to the 2 brothers. Gu-hyun feels incredibly shocked and surprised. He never expected that his brother, who is known as a demon, would actually have a handsome and rich friend like Yeo Joon. He even mistakenly assumes that his brother used physical force to make the rich kid hang out with him. Then, he starts complaining about being hungry and stubbornly demands his brother take him out to eat. Unexpectedly, someone as cold and stingy as Soo-hyun actually invites Yeo Joon to tag along. He declares that today he will generously treat both of them to a meal. Hearing this makes Yeo Joon incredibly happy. He is also very considerate, purposely picking only cheap, affordable dishes that fit Soo-hyun's tight budget. Sitting and watching them at the dining table, Soo-hyun clearly shows that he is genuinely a warm and thoughtful older brother. He carefully and affectionately takes care of every little detail for his younger brother. Seeing this makes Yeo Joon, someone who has never truly experienced genuine family love, feel deeply heartbroken. The young boy feels a mix of intense admiration and growing jealousy. When the older brother temporarily leaves to use the restroom, Gu-hyun starts eyeing the incredibly expensive and shiny watch on Yeo Joon's wrist. The boy just casually drops a few compliments about how nice the watch looks. Surprisingly, Yeo Joon generously takes it off and gives it to him right then and there. After the meal ends, Yeo Joon smiles and sighs in realization. It turns out, Soo-hyun actually has such a warm side hidden deep within. He then boldly claims that tomorrow, Soo-hyun will definitely be the one to call him first. After that, he quickly leaves and dials So-bin's number. Remembering the time Yeo Joon carelessly flirted with other girls, Soo-hyun firmly believes the kid is just a player, intentionally trying to manipulate and trick So-bin. Today, So-bin announces that she has a personal matter to attend to and cannot make it to the group meeting. Soo-hyun has no choice but to step up and act as the temporary group leader. He doesn't hesitate for a second to bluntly expose the documents Haeji found. He points out that they are 100% copied straight from the internet. Jung-ho immediately gets furious on behalf of his crush. The 2 of them get into an incredibly loud and explosive argument. Jung-ho is someone who holds deep grudges, so he purposely brings up the violent punch from the other day to threaten Soo-hyun. Not only is Soo-hyun completely unafraid, but he doubles down on his firm stance just to piss Jung-ho off even more. Feeling guilty and extremely embarrassed, Haeji loudly demands to leave the group. The 2 of them use this as the perfect excuse to storm out. Stuck in the middle, Yeo Joon feels incredibly awkward and doesn't know whose side to take. Ultimately, he firmly chooses to stay and stick with Soo-hyun. He wants to prove that his abilities make him completely worthy of staying in the group. Yeo Joon actively decides to take on the task of gathering the materials left behind by the other 3. This is because those specific major related documents are closely tied to his father company. Soo-hyun doesn't entirely trust this younger freshman just yet. He only strictly warns the kid to absolutely never toy with So-bin's genuine feelings. After that, he pulls out money to pay for the kid, coffee, and coldly walks away. Yeo Joon still refuses to give up. He carefully handwrites some incredibly humble apologies on a piece of paper. He tries his hardest to memorize them before trembling as he calls his father company to ask for the documents. Over the phone, the father mistakenly assumes it is his obedient eldest son calling and happily agrees. But the moment he realizes it is just his useless youngest son, his attitude immediately turns harsh, and he flat out refuses. This once again serves as a massive psychological blow to Yeo Joon's soul. Back to So-bin's story. The thesis she worked so hard to submit for the competition has officially won an award. She is so thrilled that she screams out loud right in the middle of the street. She immediately calls the teaching assistant to brag about her achievement. She desperately hopes the assistant will put in a good word for her with Professor Song. However, another male student who also works as a teaching assistant for Professor Song shamelessly steals all the credit for himself. He boldly claims that it was entirely thanks to the materials he provided that So-bin was able to complete her thesis and win the high prize. Hearing this, Professor Song doesn't even bother to verify the truth. She immediately grants him the scholarship allowance that rightfully belongs to So-bin. On Soo-hyun's side, doing intense manual labor leaves him looking completely exhausted and drained. To make matters worse, that annoying group of guys purposely tracks him down at his workplace just to get revenge. They enter the shop without buying any drinks but intentionally push over a water bottle, making it shatter, so Soo-hyun is forced to clean it up. Just as the guy is about to drop a second bottle, his actions are caught on camera by Young Ran, who uses her phone to take photos as evidence. She calmly hands the water bottle back to Jung-ho. She waits for the exact moment he reaches out to grab the bottle before launching a powerful kick. Then, she forcefully yanks his arm forward and delivers a brutal strike to his head. Jung-ho feels incredibly dizzy and screams in absolute agony. That is because her foot is still stomping down hard on his foot. Just as he opens his mouth to try and trick her, he accidentally catches another vicious kick aimed straight below the belt. Jung-ho feels utterly humiliated, but remains stubbornly defiant. He struggles until Young Ran crew rushes in and pins him down. Only then do the three of them finally submit and bow their heads. Soo-hyun drags his exhausted feet back home, only to panic when he discovers his younger brother holding a massive stack of cash. He instantly uses a stern voice to interrogate him about where the money came from. The younger brother looks terrified and lies, claiming it is money he earned through hard part-time work. But that lie completely fails to fool his older brother. Crying, the kid finally confesses that he got the money by selling Yeo Joon incredibly expensive watch. Soo-hyun adamantly refuses to accept this dirty money. He goes all the way to Yeo Joon luxury apartment complex to find him. No matter what, he lowers his pride and apologizes to Yeo Joon because his foolish little brother had already used almost all the money to pay for their rent. Because of this, he promises that he will slowly work to pay back every single penny to him. Yeo Joon doesn't care about getting the money back from Soo-hyun. He confesses that he just wants the older guy to treat him gently, exactly how he always treats his younger brother. At this moment, Yeo Joon finally breaks down in tears and admits that no one has ever treated him with genuine sincerity. This time, Soo-hyun has no choice but to helplessly surrender. He knows full well he cannot instantly pay back such a massive amount of money to Yeo Joon, so he agrees to become close friends with the kid. Somewhere else, Chan-ki waits for So-bin to finish her shift and immediately runs over to cling to her, just like he always used to. But So-bin can no longer see him as just a normal friend. Chan-ki has to speak up and warn So-bin to absolutely never trust Yeo Joon too much. He reveals that the other day, the kid knew perfectly well there was a girl visiting his place, yet he intentionally encouraged her and told her to come over. So Bin calmly recalls everything she has been through recently. She absolutely does not believe Yeo Joon is a malicious person who wants to see her get hurt. So she calls him and sets up a meeting by the river to get to the bottom of everything. Yeo Joon bluntly admits to it. He argues that he did it because he wanted to help Fault. So Bin faced the truth as soon as possible, but she gets furious, thinking he just views her as an easily manipulated fool. Just like that, she angrily turns away and tells him she doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. Saying those words doesn't make So Bin feel any better inside either. Today happens to be when the cherry blossoms are in full, beautiful bloom, but both she and Yeo Joon are carrying heavy hearts and cannot find any joy. His phone rings. He lights up with joy, thinking now. So Bin has changed her mind and called back, but it turns out to just be a call from his friends, inviting him out for drinks. Arriving at the crowded party, Yeo Joon clearly shows extreme boredom. When it is time to leave, Heji actively steps forward and links arms with him, wanting to take things further, but Yeo Joon just coldly shakes her off and silently walks home completely alone. He calls Soo-hyun to beg for some advice. He has no idea how to apologize to someone he just deeply hurt. Even though Soo-hyun is completely exhausted and busy working, he still takes the time to give Yeo Joon some sincere advice. He tells the kid to go meet the person face to face and offer a genuinely heartfelt apology. Right after hanging up, it is like the kid has discovered the ultimate truth. He runs like a maniac straight to So-bin dorm building. He stands right downstairs and screams her name at the top of his lungs, completely shocking everyone in the building. No one can believe the campus idol would go out of his way to look for So-bin. Yeo Joon uses all of his sincerity to deliver a deeply heartfelt apology to So-bin. He confesses that she is the person he actually likes. Making the person he likes cry in pain means he is entirely at fault. He desperately asks if she could be generous enough to forgive him. If so, he asks her to let him know once she has had time to think things through properly. After pouring his heart out, Yeo Joon feels incredibly embarrassed and quickly runs away. At this exact moment, at the construction site, Soo-hyun has been severely overworking himself, and a sudden intense headache strikes him out of nowhere. The agonizing pain makes him collapse to the ground and pass out. Right then, Yeo Joon happens to call him with the sole intention of bragging about his achievement. Thanks to this, he finds out which hospital Soo-hyun has been rushed to for emergency care. Seeing the older guy lying in the hospital bed looking utterly drained breaks his glowing heart. He decisively chooses to use his own money to get Soo-hyun transferred to a VIP intensive care room. The moment Soo-hyun wakes up, he immediately wants to leave. He has absolutely no desire to constantly carry the burden of owing Yeo Joon money. Yeo Joon stubbornly insists that the debt has already been completely settled. He argues that Soo-hyun was the one who helped him fix his twisted mindset about social relationships. Because of this, he decides that no matter how harshly the older guy curses at him, he will still stick to him like glue. Furious, Soo-hyun yells at the kid, saying he acts exactly like a monkey in a zoo that only loves clinging to people for attention. He snaps that he is still struggling just to survive and make money, so he has zero free time to play friends with him. Yeo Joon purposely acts like he doesn't care about those toxic insults at all. He casually states that, regardless of what happens, the incredibly expensive hospital bills have already been fully paid off by him. At this point, even if Soo-hyun wants to pull out money to pay him back, he simply can't. He helplessly lies flat on the bed and lets the nurse continue taking care of him. Feeling relieved, Yeo Joon quietly sneaks out. He heads home and endlessly searches the internet for nutritional diets meant for malnourished people. The next day, Yeo Joon is super excited and brings a massive pile of nutritious food to see Soo-hyun. However, the nurse informs him that the patient had already completed his discharge paperwork much earlier. He calls repeatedly, but the guy absolutely refuses to pick up. That is because, at this very moment, Soo-hyun has stubbornly returned to the construction site. He tracks down the contractor and begs to be allowed to resume working. But since the contractor witnessed his critical health condition firsthand the other day, he finds it extremely hard to agree to take him back. Just like that, Soo-hyun officially loses his job. He has to painfully drag himself back onto the internet to hunt for other part-time gigs. He frantically makes calls everywhere to ask for work, but not a single place is willing to hire a student who needs to balance working and studying. Just like that, in the blink of an eye, it is already late at night. Feeling restless, Soo-hyun calls his mother back in their hometown. He tries to comfort her so she doesn't worry too much about his younger brother, expensive tuition fees. He accepts that he might just have to file for a leave of absence from school, but his mother adamantly refuses to agree with that decision. At the exact same time, Yeo Joon is also feeling extremely anxious and restless because he cannot get in touch with Soo-hyun. His only remaining option is to send a text message to his older brother. He asks his brother to please send him the company internal documents so he can use them for his research paper. Back to So-bin's situation. She is typing away on her keyboard while constantly smiling to herself as she recalls Yeo Joon's confession. She misses him so much that her hands unconsciously type out his confession right onto the screen without her even noticing. So-bin heavy sighs, accidentally wake up Young-ran. Bored, the two of them decide to crack open some drinks right in the middle of the night. Young-ran is also extremely upset about the hardships her best friend, Soo-hyun, is facing. She expresses how much she desperately wants to step in and help him, but because his ego is just too massive, he constantly refuses to accept any favors from her. Even Mi-ju is completely miserable and torturing herself because she accidentally fell into a one-sided love trap. So all three girls in the dorm room have unresolved issues weighing heavy on their hearts. Together, they make a pact to eat hot dogs and swear to stay single for the rest of their lives. The next day at school, So-bin runs into Yeo Joon again. Seeing him enthusiastically surrounded by countless other girls, she feels a pang of sadness, thinking they are simply not a good match for each other. She originally wanted to walk up and talk to him directly, but the moment his eyes meet hers, she panics, tries to avoid him, and runs off to hide behind the school. Meanwhile, Chan-ki is currently watching a movie and sobbing uncontrollably. He feels the tragic fate of the male lead in the movie is exactly like his own. They both end up with a miserable conclusion, where they cannot get the love of the girl they care about. After drowning in his thoughts for a while, he bravely decides to go find Yeo Joon. He actively calls the kid out behind the school for a private chat. However, his intention isn't to start a fight. He calls him out to pass on everything he knows about So-bin, personal habits and hobbies. To everyone's surprise, someone as careless as Chan-ki can remember So-bin's favorite foods in incredibly vivid detail. This makes even someone who naturally hates him like Yeo Joon widen his eyes in shock and clap his hands in absolute admiration. After completely resolving the lingering issues with Chan-ki, Yeo Joon gathers all his courage to meet his older brother and ask for the confidential documents. Unexpectedly, Joon-won actually agrees to bring the files and hands them over to his younger brother. But in order to get his hands on that incredibly valuable stack of papers, Yeo Joon has to promise that, at all costs, he will not return home for the important family dinner next week. He knows perfectly well that his parents and his older brother completely despise his existence, but he is absolutely determined to go back for the family gathering next week. He wants to go back just to remind them of one undeniable fact: he is also a blood relative of the family. Even if no one in the house refuses to acknowledge it, it will always remain the truth. After spitting out those bitter words, Yeo Joon snatches the stack of documents and turns his back to leave. The sight of Yeo Joon walking out of the professor's office happens to catch Soo-hyun's observant eyes. He connects the dots and slowly figures out that these two are definitely biological brothers. This leaves him wondering why Yeo Joon previously lied and claimed he was an only child. Right then, Yeo Joon rushes out into the hallway and happens to bump into So-bin. He announces that he is finally ready to hear her official answer. So-bin explains that it is not exactly that she wants to reject the younger freshman. It is just that she feels she hasn't had enough time to truly understand who he is as a person. Hearing this, Yeo Joon is incredibly quick to seize the opportunity right on the spot. He asks her if she would like to take the time to really get to know him. Blushing with embarrassment, So-bin nods her head in agreement. However, she boldly makes sure to clarify that she is only doing this to figure him out, but she absolutely does not like him. The sight of Yeo Joon smiling so tenderly at So-bin is completely caught by Hae-ji, making her incredibly furious. On his way back to class, Yeo Joon simply cannot stop texting to check up on Soo-hyun's health. He is completely clueless that the older guy is walking silently right behind him. At the end of class, the professor watches Yeo Joon quickly run after and tail Soo-hyun. Because of this, the professor mistakenly assumes that these two male students are secretly dating each other. Soo-hyun completely refuses to accept Yeo Joon money for the hospital bills, but he shows a massive amount of interest in the important stack of documents the kid just managed to get. After that, he pulls out money and fully repays the hospital fees to the kid. The fact that Soo-hyun could magically gather enough money to pay off such an expensive hospital bill in just a single night makes Yeo Joon extremely worried that he secretly borrowed money from loan sharks. The older guy absolutely refuses to reveal what kind of part-time job he is doing to make money. He simply feels that he does not want to endure the burden of owing anyone too many favors. On another note, So-bin thoughtfully brings fresh flowers straight to Professor Song's office to show her gratitude. She thanks her for generously allowing her to work as a secretary. Thanks to that, her thesis gained incredible depth and she was lucky enough to win an award. However, she has absolutely no idea about the massive scandal happening inside that very office. The male student, Jo Ma-do, had secretly ripped her name tag right off the document folder. When the professor questioned him about who the real owner of the document was, he shamelessly took the credit and lied, claiming it was the very material he had worked so hard to find for her. At this moment, So-bin suddenly transforms from a completely invisible person on campus into the absolute center of gossip among the girls. The root cause is a rumor spreading like wildfire that she is secretly dating the campus idol Yeo Joon. And naturally, the person who is the most bitter and furious about this is the popular girl, Hae-ji. Up in the office, the kind-hearted lecturer Choi brings the bouquet. So-bin gifted into Professor Song's room. By complete coincidence, he accidentally reads a paragraph of text displayed right on her computer screen. He instantly recognizes that this is 100% an excerpt taken straight from So-bin thesis. This is because he is the exact person who helped her edit the paper in the past. For a professor to blatantly copy a student thesis like this is something completely unacceptable. Back to So-bin's situation. She calls Yeo Joon and sets up a meeting to talk face-to-face. She tells him he needs to step up and officially clear up all the ridiculous rumors spreading all over the campus. Yeo Joon clearly shows extreme annoyance on his face. He absolutely refuses to go along with it because he truly wants to date So-bin. The naive Yeo Joon has no idea that his sheer stubbornness has accidentally dragged So-bin into a massive pile of unnecessary trouble. She is forced to endure the sarcastic mockery and insults from the other girls, who call her a shameless flirt trying to seduce men. The intense public pressure makes her feel completely miserable as she recalls her painful past, where her friends isolated her just because her father had an affair. The haunting memories tangled in her mind make her sob so hard she can barely breathe. At this time, Yeo Joon is hanging out with his group of toxic friends. Haiji curiously asks if he is actually seriously dating So-bin, because he is absolutely terrified that these false rumors will ruin So-bin's reputation. He has no choice but to lie and deny it entirely. Hearing this, Haiji lights up with joy, acting like she just got the green light to push further. She instantly starts trash-talking and publicly humiliating So-bin. This incredibly rude remark immediately sets Yeo Joon off, and he furiously storms away. He angrily ignores Jung-ho attempts to pull him back and make peace. That completely dismissive attitude leaves Jung-ho feeling extremely bitter and resentful. He decides to plot a dirty trick to ensure Soo-hyun group cannot stand on the presentation stage. Using some secretive method, his group manages to secretly steal Soo-hyun's handwritten notebook. The moment Yeo Joon steps outside, he pulls out his phone and immediately calls So-bin. But on the other end of the line, all he can hear is her panicked, heavy breathing. Extremely worried, he frantically runs through every corner of the campus, searching for any sign of So-bin. Finally, he finds her sitting huddled and completely dazed in a deserted area behind the school. So-bin uses the last bit of her weak breath to chase Yeo Joon away. Sobbing, she begs him to try and stay as far away from her as possible. She argues that it would be better for both of them if they stopped trying to dig too deeply into each other's true selves. Now it is Yeo Joon's turn to stand completely frozen, looking like he has lost his soul. He desperately feels that absolutely anyone who gets involved with him is destined to run into terrible luck. He pessimistically thinks that maybe his biological mother's cruel curse was actually right, that only if he ceases to exist in this world will people finally be able to feel completely comfortable and happy. So-bin's life isn't getting any easier either. She hasn't done a single thing to offend Professor Song, but the professor cruelly takes her anger out on her and uses any excuse to fire her directly from her dedicated secretary position. When night falls, the three toxic male students gather and head straight to the bar where Young Ran works. Their ultimate goal is to manipulate her into stopping her friendship with Soo-hyun. They make up vicious lies, smearing him as a lazy bum who only knows how to leech off other people's money. Hearing this, Young Ran feels incredibly disgusted and annoyed. She gets so furious she wants to jump right in and beat Jung-ho up on the spot. Luckily, the bar manager rushes out and breaks it up just in time. It isn't until very late at night, when the three men are completely dead drunk and passed out, that Yeo Joon finally arrives. He fully intends to follow his old habit and pull out his card to pay for their massive drinking tab. But this time, Young Ran violently grabs his hand to stop him. She declares the absolute rule: whoever drinks must pull money out of their own pocket to pay. After that, she probes to see if he is actually close friends with Soo-hyun. Yeo Joon has no choice but to honestly admit that Soo-hyun never really liked him from the start. Young Ran confides that even though she holds the title of his best friend, she rarely ever gets the chance to actually meet up with Soo-hyun, but she still feels a deep sense of joy in her heart because she is the only person lucky enough to be considered his close friend. It isn't until the dead of night that the group of guys finally staggers to their feet to leave. One of the guys is so incredibly drunk that he ends up dropping his bag. Because of this, Yeo Joon accidentally discovers Soo-hyun's missing notebook. He happily picks the notebook up. To his surprise, Right after that, he unexpectedly receives a phone call from Soo-hyun. He is so shocked he even thinks he accidentally dialed the wrong number. But surprisingly, from the other end of the line, Soo-hyun actually speaks up and invites him out to eat. Yeo Joon hurriedly throws the bag aside and runs as fast as his legs can carry him. However, when he finally arrives, he is hit with the reality that this is actually the restaurant where Soo-hyun works. The older guy had already proactively paid for Yeo Joon's expensive meal, so the kid could sit there and eat completely alone. Watching Soo-hyun wear an apron and exhaustedly run back and forth to serve customers, Yeo Joon feels so heartbroken that he simply cannot choke down the meal. Even after Soo-hyun finishes his shift, Yeo Joon patiently sits outside like a good kid, waiting for him. Today, Soo-hyun purposely called him here with a specific intention. He wanted the kid to witness with his own 2 eyes exactly how busy and grueling his life is just to earn money. He confesses that every single time Yeo Joon appears in front of him, he cannot stop comparing his own impoverished background to the kid's wealth, and he feels utterly pathetic realizing that their lives are truly worlds apart, separated by a massive, unreachable gap. That is exactly why he ruthlessly refused to look at Yeo Joon's face, simply to prevent himself from feeling even more insecure. Hearing this makes Yeo Joon feel incredibly devastated. He had naively fantasized that today he would get to happily eat and drink with Soo-hyun, which is why he dropped everything and rushed over here. He never expected that upon arriving, he would be forced to agonizingly watch the older guy endure poverty and extreme hardship. On top of that, he gets splashed with cold water as the guy tells him to never ever try to cling to him again. Choking back his emotions, Yeo Joon doesn't know what else to say other than a quiet thank you for the delicious meal before silently turning his back and walking away. Truth be told, deep down in his heart, Soo-hyun also feels incredibly miserable. He absolutely never wanted to say such ruthless and cruel words. It is only because he feels so deeply insecure that his current life holds absolutely zero glimmer of hope. Because of that, he doesn't dare to grant anyone the right to be interested in or care about him as a person. The next day in class, Yeo Joon has to make a choice about which presentation group to join. Both Soo-hyun and So-bin desperately hope the 3 of them can continue as a team. But right now, out of sheer anger and resentment, Yeo Joon decides to ask to join Jung-ho group. Feeling completely discouraged, he reverts right back to his old lifestyle, surrounded by fake friends. On the surface, they are working on a group project together, but in reality, all they care about is getting Yeo Joon to open his wallet and treat them to whatever they want to eat this afternoon. The whole group huddles together, chatting loudly, while Yeo Joon sinks deep into a profound feeling of loneliness in the middle of the crowd. So Bin is feeling incredibly sad about what happened with him, while also deeply stressed over the completely unreasonable excuse Professor Song used to ruthlessly fire her. Soo-hyun speaks up and advises her that if she has doubts in her heart, she should be brave enough to go and ask directly. He strictly tells her not to be afraid of offending other people, gaining massive encouragement from him. So Bin marches straight to the office to demand the professor explain the cruel reason behind her firing. The professor puts on an arrogant face and bluntly replies that from the very beginning, she never even liked So Bin at all. She makes up an excuse, claiming the girl completely lacks the professional skills needed. She even victim blames her, saying she is greedy and intentionally tries to steal opportunities away from other people. Hearing this, So Bin doesn't need to stand there and listen to any more of these humiliating insults. She finally realizes that she hasn't done a single thing wrong. The core issue is simply that the professor has an incredibly toxic and selfish personality. After finishing classes, Soo-hyun is instantly swamped and has to rush straight to the university cafeteria for his part-time job, but he still cannot escape the malicious sabotage from Jung-ho gang. They intentionally pretend to spill food all over the floor in a massive mess. This incident makes the cafeteria manager feel incredibly annoyed. In order to keep his business running smoothly and peacefully, he has no choice but to ruthlessly make the decision to fire Soo-hyun. The moment Yeo Joon gets the news, he runs over as fast as his life depends on it. He quietly hides in a dark corner and witnesses the heartbreaking sight of Soo-hyun miserably bowing and begging for his job. Seeing the image of Soo-hyun curled up, burying his face in his hands, and sobbing uncontrollably in the school storage room, makes Yeo Joon feel completely devastated. Tormented by guilt, he makes a firm decision that from now on, he will never ever show up and interfere with the older guy life again. Unexpectedly, the moment he steps outside, Soo-hyun catches him. He is curious to know why Yeo Joon is still wandering around here at this hour. However, Yeo Joon's attitude at this moment does a complete 180-degree flip. He coldly transforms into a completely unrecognizable stranger. For the first time ever, he boldly dares to raise his voice and scream out the anger and true emotions he has been suppressing deep in his heart. The scene of the two of them loudly arguing is accidentally witnessed by young Ran from a distance. She is just about to run up and intervene when she spots Soo-hyun's bag of belongings. She sharply realizes that today, he is once again forced to wander the streets completely homeless. She purposely calls his phone to casually check up on him. But Soo-hyun is so utterly exhausted that he doesn't even bother to pick up. He silently trudges to the library to work on his assignments. He conveniently uses the space there as a temporary place to lay his head and sleep for the night. Feeling heartbroken, young Ran secretly sneaks over and leaves a bottle of nutritional vitamins right next to where he is lying. In a completely different corner, Yeo Joon spends that entire night tossing and turning, completely unable to sleep properly. The exhausted image and the brutally cold words of Soo-hyun keep playing on a continuous loop inside his head. All of this makes him relentlessly torment himself, deeply questioning his own current way of living. He painfully asks himself if there is actually anyone left in this world who genuinely has feelings for him. At the exact same time, inside the art room, Mi-ju is also endlessly daydreaming and obsessing over the image of Soo-hyun. She is so deeply lovesick that she even uses her pen to personally sketch out his sharp, handsome face. In the dorm room, So-bin is also tossing and turning, completely unable to close her eyes and sleep peacefully. She feels an overwhelming sense of regret and guilt because she accidentally blurted out such incredibly harsh breakup words to Yeo Joon. Meanwhile, young Ran, lying restlessly right next to her, keeps constantly mumbling about her dream of owning a private house. She thinks that if she had one, at the very least, she would have a decent place to let Soo-hyun borrow for a temporary place to sleep. The next day, So-bin decides to swallow her pride and make peace with Yeo Joon. She does this by going out and buying a beautiful bouquet of hyacinths to give to him. She feels incredibly awkward and flustered, having absolutely no idea how to properly use words to express her true feelings. So she simply tells him to open his phone, go online, and look up the symbolic meaning of this specific flower himself. After that, she blushes deeply in embarrassment and completely runs away. After looking it up online, Yeo Joon feels absolutely amazed and incredibly surprised. That is because the deep meaning behind this flower is actually a symbol of eternal love. Or, it can also carry the message of a profoundly sincere apology, so he confidently decides to choose the first meaning. He fully assumes that it represents the deep, hidden feelings So-bin holds for him. Surprisingly, So-bin frantically runs right back to find him. She tries her hardest to convince him to quickly return and work with her group. That is because the specialized stack of documents he gave to Soo-hyun holds incredible value. Because of that, he absolutely deserves to receive a grade that perfectly matches the immense effort he put in. To her complete surprise, the next day, the moment she steps onto the campus grounds, So-bin is completely surrounded and blocked by that bullying group. They aggressively demand to steal back the stack of documents Yeo Joon worked so hard to gather. They are completely aware that these are strictly confidential, internal company files. This is something incredibly difficult to ever easily find on the internet. Because of that, they are absolutely desperate and determined to snatch it back by any means necessary, just to score an easy high grade. Right at the exact moment when So-bin is completely powerless and has no idea what to do, Yeo Joon bravely charges in to rescue her just in time. He no longer holds back or feels any fear toward these thugs. He gets completely furious and screams loudly right in Heeji's face. Yeo Joon also makes it incredibly obvious that he couldn't care less about Jung-ho threats. He firmly and bluntly declares he is pulling his name out of their group, then proudly grabs So-bin's hand and leads her away. The two of them walk together to where Soo-hyun is sitting for a group meeting. It is incredibly obvious that earlier, Soo-hyun had explicitly told So-bin to go and convince Yeo Joon to return to the group. But ironically, now that the kid is actually here, he still deliberately puts on a completely cold and emotionless face. The two men just keep constantly bickering and firing sharp words back and forth at each other. This scene leaves So-bin stuck right in the middle, feeling unbelievably awkward. She has no choice but to quickly make an excuse about going to buy coffee just to escape the tension. At the same time, inside the faculty office, Professor Song is furiously interrogating Ma-do for having the absolute audacity to steal So-bin documents. However, he remains entirely shameless, puts on a thick skin, and lies right to her face. He completely makes up an excuse, claiming it was a document that he and So-bin actually co-authored together. Therefore, he naturally assumes he has the full right to hand it over to the professor to use as reference material. Hearing this makes her feel this excuse is absolutely laughable. But because she herself had already accidentally stolen a fantastic paragraph from So-bin and shoved it straight into her own thesis, she is currently in no position to ruthlessly kick Ma-do out of the group. Only now does she deeply and truly regret her ruthless decision to fire So-bin, but by now it is far too late to salvage the situation. Outside on the campus grounds, Yeo Joon is carelessly and happily holding 2 ice cream cones to bring to So-bin, but when he texts to check exactly where she is, he is completely shocked to find out she is busy in class and cannot run outside. So, he has no choice but to sadly share that freezing cold ice cream with a professor instead. He takes the opportunity to have a little heart-to-heart chat with the professor about all the confusing friendship troubles he has been dealing with lately. To repay him for the sweet and tasty ice cream, the wise professor gives Yeo Joon some incredibly profound and practical advice. He tells him that as long as you keep your rational mind incredibly strong, you will absolutely be able to conquer your heart and any dark, toxic desires. Just like that, he happily skips back home and immediately pulls out the bouquet of hyacinths So-bin gave him to show off to Chan-ki. Chan-ki is extremely competitive and completely refuses to lose. He confidently thumps his chest and brags that he too was once favored by So-bin, who gifted him a much larger potted plant. Hearing this makes Yeo Joon face drop, completely revealing his disappointment. However, when he secretly goes online to search for the meaning behind that specific potted plant, he instantly becomes incredibly happy and radiant again. He discovers that the potted plant simply carries a basic meaning of wishing someone good health. Meanwhile, his bouquet of hyacinths carries the profound meaning of eternal love. The kind-hearted Chan-ki wants to open up and tell Yeo Joon more about So-bin habits, but he is quickly stopped as the kid raises his hand. He arrogantly declares that he wants to personally discover and conquer her, all by himself. At the library area, young Ran secretly sneaks back to check on Soo-hyun, but her heart completely breaks when she sees the nutritious bottle of vitamins she left behind sitting exactly where it was untouched. Because he has absolutely no idea who the item belongs to, he has carefully avoided drinking it entirely. At this moment, he is still frantically running around trying to beg for more part-time jobs, but it seems the goddess of luck is completely refusing to smile at him. Even though a kind female boss agrees to let him work there, the place is entirely inconvenient because it has nowhere for him to sleep overnight. Soo-hyun bitterly stares at his own exhausted, hollow reflection in the mirror. Then his eyes unconsciously drift over to an advertisement flyer for kidney selling plastered right on the wall. He emotionally recalls the exact moment Yeo Joon followed him. The kid had desperately warned him that he must absolutely never sell his kidney, no matter how desperate his small situation becomes. Soo-hyun suddenly snaps out of it and fully realizes this truth. He silently tells himself that no matter how brutally he has to grind and work, as long as he manages to keep his health intact, he still has his entire future ahead of him. Even though he has to constantly hustle and struggle just to survive, he remains absolutely determined to never slack off on his studies and class. However, he still reluctantly ends up arriving at the group meeting much later than the other 2 members. Deep down, Yeo Joon is incredibly concerned and worried about Soo-hyun's health condition. But every single time he opens his mouth, he immediately uses sharp, biting words to completely mock the older guy. Both men just keep using So-bin as a human meat shield to constantly bicker back and forth. Neither of them is willing to lower their pride and let the other win an argument. This exact situation leaves the girl stuck right in the middle, feeling unbelievably awkward. Once the group meeting officially wraps up, Soo-hyun stands there completely lost, having absolutely no idea where he should go to beg for a place to sleep. Then, completely unexpectedly, he receives a phone call from the cafeteria management board. They eagerly call him, desperately asking him to hurry back and resume working immediately. This time, they absolutely guarantee they will provide a proper and decent place for him to eat and sleep. They inform him that they have already ruthlessly fired that notoriously strict manager. Soo-hyun gets curious and goes online to search for answers. That is when he finally discovers the truth. The manager was exposed by a leaked audio recording. In it, the man openly admitted that he fired the kids simply because he secretly schemed to take over the break room for his own personal use. This leaves him wondering exactly who had the absolute guts to leak that secret audio recording to the public. Soo-hyun suddenly flashes back to the image of Yeo Joon back as he was leaving the cafeteria area that very night. He is absolutely certain that the younger freshman was the one who stepped up to help him demand justice. He immediately pulls out his phone and calls the kid, but in response, Yeo Joon completely refuses to pick up the phone. That is because right now, he is incredibly busy going on a date with So-bin. He also absolutely does not want Soo-hyun to bring up the topic of owing him a massive favor every single time he opens his mouth. Yeo Joon thoughtfully leads So-bin on a walk right back to her old kindergarten. This is the exact place where she carries massive amounts of psychological trauma. When she was little, she was constantly bullied and cursed at by her classmates, who called her a bastard child with a cheating playboy father. Yeo Joon bringing So-bin back to this old place isn't meant to force her to agonizingly torture herself. The true intention is for her to bravely dare to face the brutal truths of her past. He advises her that only when she can personally heal her past self will she truly have enough courage to completely escape that dark psychological shadow and live happily in the present. So-bin obediently listens to Yeo Joon's genuinely sincere advice. She bursts into loud, uncontrollable sobs and fully admits that back then, she was truly, incredibly terrified. The exact second she wraps her arms around the illusion of her younger self, it is also the magical moment she successfully heals her own soul with her own two hands. It is incredibly ironic that a child deeply covered in psychological trauma like Yeo Joon is now able to become the solid pillar of support, helping another traumatized child. So-bin overcome and finally escape her past. As they are strolling back, he sharply notices her shoelace has come completely undone. He acts incredibly chivalrous, immediately dropping down to carefully tie it back up for her. Seeing a yellow leaf that has accidentally fallen and gotten stuck on Yeo Joon's head, So-bin gently reaches out her hand, intending to softly stroke his fluffy hair. She has absolutely no idea that Yeo Joon is actually incredibly sensitive about other people touching his hair. He looks completely panicked and hesitates, raising his hand to block her. In order to quickly escape this completely awkward dilemma, he instantly makes up a little game. The rule of the game is that whoever manages to run back to the dorm door first gets to have the loser grant them one absolutely anything they wish for. Just like that, the two of them excitedly race each other amidst joyful laughter and teasing. That night, when he returns home completely alone, Yeo Joon clearly feels that he no longer has the sensation of being surrounded by intense loneliness. That is because right beside him, he now has the bouquet of hyacinths So-bin gave him to keep him company every single night. On another note, Professor Song's plagiarism scandal simply could not be kept hidden for long. The whole situation was accidentally discovered by a teaching assistant. While bringing documents and materials up to submit to her, the teaching assistant unintentionally brought up "holler." So-bin fantastic paragraph. This innocent comment happened to hit right on the professor's sensitive weak spot. Just like that, she completely flipped her attitude and used the young girl's future career opportunities to ruthlessly threaten and blackmail her. She strictly warned her that if she didn't know what was good for her and keep her mouth tightly shut, she would absolutely be stripped of her precious opportunity to become a lecturer. Hearing this, the female assistant turned pale with absolute terror, hurriedly bowed, and ran away. Naturally, Professor Song herself was also scared half to death by the close call. Back to the situation of the three useless group members, Jung-ho is only now finally starting to feel terrified. He is scared that if he stubbornly stays separated from the group, he won't be able to complete the assignment and risks getting a terrible grade. The three of them cowardly scheme to crawl back and beg to rejoin Soo-hyun group. They arrogantly assume that So-bin still possesses the exact same timid and cowardly personality as she did before, so they completely rely on their numbers and aggressively try to launch a psychological attack to intimidate her. Unexpectedly, completely contrary to their calculations, she firmly stands her ground and ruthlessly rejects them. She bravely and bluntly exposes their scheme, calling them out for simply wanting to leech off their hard work just to snag a free grade. Hearing this makes Jung-ho turn red with sheer bitterness. He silently vows to never ever let So-bin group get away with this. Very quickly, the day of the incredibly stressful presentation finally arrives. Thanks to the extremely rare documents Yeo Joon worked so hard to deliver, combined with the incredibly thorough and detailed analysis from all three team members, the trio fully deserves to receive receive a perfect A grade in the professor evaluation book. But Jung-ho completely refuses to accept defeat. He bitterly and loudly claims that Soo-hyun was the only person in the group who actually did any work. He accuses the other two of basically not lifting a single finger to do anything. After that, he maliciously throws out an incredibly difficult question. He forcefully demands that So-bin personally stand up and answer it right in front of the entire class. And this insanely difficult question happens to be the exact one located right inside the preparation materials of So-bin group. It turns out that yesterday, she was gullible enough to trust her personal laptop with the girl in his group to hold on to. She never expected that the girl would completely take advantage of her and secret copy and steal the question, knowing perfectly well that So-bin's biggest weakness is her sheer terror of public speaking. The three of them look incredibly smug and laugh mockingly, staring at dozens of eyes from the crowd glaring up at her from below. So-bin starts feeling incredibly anxious and completely panicked. But the moment she sees and receives Yeo Joon's smiling nod of massive encouragement, combined with the sudden memory of her childhood best friend completely forgiving all her mistakes, So-bin feels as if she has been injected with massive strength and regains an incredible amount of motivation. She powerfully and confidently stands right in front of absolutely everyone in the auditorium. She calmly answers Jung-ho's incredibly difficult question in a completely detailed and articulate manner, because this was originally the exact question that So-bin herself worked incredibly hard to gather materials for. She not only knows the root of the answer perfectly well, but she also deeply understands the profound meaning completely hidden behind that difficult question. This makes even a deceitful person like Jung-ho bow his head in absolute defeat. The professor grading them also feels incredibly happy and completely satisfied. He strictly rules that he will only award an A grade to the three people who actually put in the effort to do the work. As for the three freeloaders who did absolutely nothing, they will absolutely not receive a single point. After the class completely finishes, Jung-ho feels unbelievably furious and enraged. He totally assumes that So-bin group deceitfully knew about his actions beforehand. Because of that, he thinks they all ganged up to set a trap and ruthlessly played him. Both Soo-hyun and So-bin are completely unfazed and refuse to be intimidated by these loud, aggressive curses. Yeo Joon himself also proudly declares that he is cutting off all ties with that girl. KG, as they step outside into the hallway together, he happily raises his hand to high-five So-bin in celebration. To absolutely everyone's surprise, Soo-hyun's massive hand also unexpectedly joins in on the high-five. For the very first time in his entire life, Yeo Joon finally feels like he actually has genuinely good friends. Back to Miju's situation. She is currently struggling to follow an incredibly strict and miserable diet. But the moment she accidentally spots Soo-hyun carrying trays and working in the cafeteria, she doesn't hesitate for a single second to grab a completely full tray of food and walk right over to sit near him. She secretly wants to get a much closer look at his incredibly handsome face. Seeing that he doesn't seem to have even the slightest memory of who she is, she openly shows a brief flash of sadness deep inside. But since she knows she has already helplessly fallen deeply in passionate love with him, suddenly she feels like the cheap cafeteria rice tastes incredibly, strangely delicious. When his shift is finally over, Soo-hyun accidentally runs into Young-ran. He finally softens his tone and actually picks up her phone call. This makes her so unbelievably happy and overjoyed that she literally jumps up and grabs him by the collar. This exact scene of the two of them happily joking around and acting incredibly close is completely caught by Miju's eyes. Only now does she painfully realize a brutal truth. The man who has completely dominated Young-ran's heart for all this time is actually Soo-hyun. In a completely different corner, So-bin and Yeo Joon are drinking beer together on a bridge to celebrate their incredibly successful presentation. Because So-bin has a terrible alcohol tolerance, she gets drunk and looks exactly like an incredibly adorable little kitten. She just keeps drunkenly rambling completely non-stop right into Yeo Joon's ear. Once again, she reaches her hand up to pick off a fallen leaf right on his head. This time, he completely stops showing any attitude of resistance or avoidance like he did before. Suddenly, he feels a massive wave of fear rising deep inside his heart. He is terrified that he will fall way too deeply and passionately in love with this adorable girl. He is absolutely terrified that he is simply not mature or completely grown up enough right now to confidently provide her with a fully complete and happy future later on. However, right after that, he completely fails to anticipate So-bin's incredibly bold move. She executes a completely decisive action that firmly carves itself into his memory, ensuring he will absolutely never be able to forget it for the rest of his entire life. The physical distance between the two of them gets closer and closer. Yeo Joon unexpectedly uses his strength to pull So-bin right up against his body. He gathers absolutely all his courage, closes his eyes, and moves closer to her slightly parted lips. Yeo Joon originally only intended to tease and scare the older girl into backing away. Who would have expected that So-bin would completely take the initiative, lean completely forward, and lock lips with him? Just like that, she officially gives the younger freshman a massive green light and an incredibly precious opportunity to pursue her. Yeo Joon actively leans down and piggybacks So-bin all the way back to her dorm. His face clearly displays the absolute ultimate satisfaction and joy of someone who has just won a massive prize. Even when they arrive right at the bottom of the stairs, the two of them are still completely clinging to each other, absolutely refusing to let go. After reluctantly dropping So-bin off inside her room, Yeo Joon suddenly receives a phone call from Soo-hyun asking to meet up. Because his mood right now is unbelievably happy and floating on air, he cheerfully agrees, but firmly attaches a condition. Soo-hyun must immediately contact Young-ran and instruct her to properly and carefully look after So-bin. Immediately, Young-ran receives Soo-hyun's favor call. She is frantically just about to run outside with Mi-ju to search for So-bin, but So-bin is already completely wasted and has managed to crawl and roll her own way right to the front door of the room. Out at the park, Soo-hyun takes the initiative to speak up and openly thank Yeo Joon. It is entirely thanks to the kid's incredibly smart move of secretly recording the audio that he was able to completely win back his justice. For the very first time, the kid gets to see with his own two eyes. Soo-hyun's incredibly rare smile. Yeo Joon happily nods his head and fully agrees to make peace with him. The next day, after sobering up, So-bin feels incredibly regretful. She regrets her reckless, drunken actions from the night before. The memory of that unexpected kiss on the bridge keeps replaying in her mind. On the other side, Yeo Joon slowly starts to wake up. With his eyes still closed, he feels completely relaxed and comfortable, thinking. So-bin is still gently stroking his hair. When he opens his eyes, what he actually sees is the beautiful pot of flowers she gave him. This instantly turns his morning into a fantastic start to a new day. Even though he has some bad luck on his way to school and almost gets hit by a truck while crossing the street, remembering those romantic and happy moments with So-bin makes Yeo Joon confidently smile, convinced that today is an incredibly lucky day. The university is getting ready to host a bustling spring festival. Posters and banners are plastered everywhere with details about exciting competitions. Right on the bulletin board, someone also pinned up a picture of the three useless seniors completely wasted and passed out, along with a threatening note from the bar owner, Young-ran, demanding they pay their drinking tab. Walking past and seeing this, Jung-ho scowls and tears down the humiliating notice. He completely didn't expect that Yeo Joon would actually be stingy enough to not cover his bar tab that day. Soon after, he comes up with another despicable scheme. He wants to pretend to be friendly again, just to get another chance to leech off Yeo Joon money. Meanwhile, Yeo Joon is feeling restless because he cannot reach So-bin on her phone. He frantically searches for her. Unaware that her phone battery had just died, she is currently busy trying to borrow a portable charger from Chan-ki. He purposely pretends not to have one, while his mouth just keeps rambling and flirting non-stop. He begs So-bin to be generous and go back to being his close best friend, just like before. At that moment, Yeo Joon aggressively marches over from a distance and cuts their private conversation short. Acting exactly like a powerful and protective boyfriend, he pulls his girl back. He wants her to keep a safe distance from other guys. The more So-bin tries to act natural and speak normally, the more she clumsily exposes her own shyness. She naively thinks Yeo Joon wouldn't care about their reckless kiss yesterday. So after making a few excuses for herself, she turns around and runs away in embarrassment. However, once she hides in a quiet corner, So-bin starts to reflect on things. She remembers all the beautiful moments she spent by Yeo Joon's side. Finally, she realizes that she has truly fallen for him. By now, Yeo Joon has quietly followed her and is standing right behind her. So-bin honestly admits that she just lied. She bravely confesses that she actually has genuine romantic feelings for him. Hearing this, Yeo Joon smiles happily. The girl he has been secretly crushing on finally admits she likes him back. Now, he can officially and rightfully pull her into a tight hug. So-bin gently returns that warm embrace. She allows herself the chance to experience the feeling of romantic love. From now on, the two of them freely and comfortably hold hands while walking around. They openly show off their sweet romance on campus without fearing anyone's judgment or stares. The festival atmosphere on campus is incredibly lively and bustling. While strolling around, Mi-ju is drawn to a fortune-telling booth. As soon as she steps through the curtain into the gloomy tent, the fortune-teller takes one look and bluntly declares that the man she likes is a total playboy. Mi-ju immediately argues back, feeling this prediction is completely untrue. Flustered, the fortune-teller quickly corrects his reading. He tells her she is like a flower, enduring a miserable one-sided love. Those words hit right on the mark, allowing him to successfully reel in his gullible customer. Mi-ju asks to buy some sort of magic charm. She hopes this charm can magically sever the tie between her crush and his female best friend. The sly fortune-teller immediately pulls out a ring made of candy. He sells it at an outrageously sky-high price. He instructs her that she just needs to put this charm on the female friend hand and convince her to eat the whole candy. Then, the charm will work and break their relationship. He adds that if Mi-ju doesn't want to use this charm, there is another destined romance patiently waiting for her at the West Stone benches. Mi-ju instantly pulls out her wallet to buy the candy charm, firmly stating she doesn't need any other romance in this world, except for Soo-hyun. A little later, she spots Chan-ki out in the schoolyard. She also sees the Yeo Joon and Soo-hyun duo sitting there cheering as young Ran performs martial arts. Living up to her tough girl reputation, she uses her bare hand to effortlessly smash a brick into pieces, leaving Chan-ki totally shocked and terrified. She then uses her bare fist to crush hard walnuts. When the duo walks over, they are even more amazed. Young Ran powerfully smashes beer bottles to pieces. She throws a punch that bursts a watermelon wide open. She uses her hand to perfectly chop a pineapple in half. It seems there is absolutely nothing hard enough to withstand young Ran's destructive power. These performances terrify the playboy Chan-ki so much that he frantically bites his nails and mumbles prayers. When the crowd switches to playing a telepathy game, young Ran and Soo-hyun surprisingly write down the exact same answers. This proves that their tight-knit friendship isn't just a coincidence, but is built on deep mutual understanding. Meanwhile, Mi-ju secretly uses her notebook to carefully jot down all the hobbies and delicious foods Soo-hyun praises. Once they finish playing, she immediately runs over to gift the candy ring to young Ran. But completely unexpectedly, young Ran is someone who absolutely hates eating sweets. Just like that, Mi-ju's charm plan fails miserably. Regretfully, she is forced to eat the candy herself. Little does she know, her true humiliation is only just beginning. Mi-ju stubbornly whines and begs Soo-hyun to play a water balloon game with her. He frowns, having absolutely no desire to join in. Worried that Mi-ju will feel sad and left out, young Ran reluctantly steps in to play with her instead. This accidentally creates an incredibly awkward scene of two girls playing a couple game together, looking absolutely uncomfortable. In the afternoon, there is a music stage for talented student singers. No one expected that the mandatory representative for the business administration department would be the cold-faced Soo-hyun. He was reluctantly forced by his professor to go up and sing, mainly because the winner of this competition would receive a hefty cash prize. However, the moment he starts singing, his voice sounds like an ear-piercing cow bellow. This makes the entire audience burst into fits of laughter. Watching from the crowd and seeing his older friend completely embarrassed, Yeo Joon acts chivalrously and decides to jump on stage to save the day. The lyrics he chooses to sing are full of romantic and sweet words, aimed specifically at So-bin. Blushing, Soo-hyun sneaks back to his seat sandwiched between the two girls. Still feeling incredibly awkward, he tries to quickly slip away. Mi-ju sweetly tries to convince Soo-hyun to play another game with her, but young Ran is quicker, grabbing his arm and dragging him away right in front of her. After finishing his performance, Yeo Joon holds So-bin's hand as they stroll over to get a love reading. The toxic fortune-teller harshly predicts that the two of them will not last long together. He prophesies that So-bin will eventually turn her back and return to her very first love. Hearing this brings a bad omen to their hearts, making them both extremely suspicious. They decide to strip off the fortune teller disguise, exactly as they suspected. The face underneath belongs to Chan-ki, who was faking it the whole time. Mi-ju looks incredibly depressed and discouraged because she has no way to flirt with the man she loves. She decides to take a risk and follow the fortune teller exact advice. She directs her eyes toward the stone benches located to the west. To her total surprise, the guy sitting right there is Chan-ki. He also just had his fake fortune teller plan completely busted. Mi-ju pouts in obvious disgust and immediately turns around to walk away. Truth be told, Chan-ki was sitting there desperately waiting for the destined girl of his life to appear. He pulls out the candy ring and throws it into the air for good luck. Unexpectedly, the person who accidentally catches that ring is the tough girl, Young Ran. This wild coincidence scares Chan-ki half to death, making him frantically run for his life. It turns out tonight is actually Soo-hyun's birthday. Both he and Yeo Joon are secretly called over to the girls' dormitory. The moment So-bin door opens, party poppers go off, cheerfully wishing Soo-hyun a happy birthday. The beautiful bouquet of flowers Yeo Joon went out of his way to prepare isn't actually for Soo-hyun. Instead, he secretly hands it over to So-bin. Right then, the lovesick Mi-ju also rushes back into the room. She completely ignores everyone else's presence, keeping her love-struck eyes glued only to Soo-hyun. Having everyone go out of their way to throw him a surprise birthday party makes a lonely guy like him feel incredibly shy and unused to the loud atmosphere. On guard, Soo-hyun mentions that he is terrified of people smashing cake into his face. Hearing this, Mi-ju quickly raises her hand, volunteering to be his personal bodyguard. She is also the one singing the birthday song the loudest out of the whole group. But as soon as Soo-hyun closes his eyes to blow out the candles and make a wish, So-bin and Young Ran unexpectedly shove his face straight into the sweet cake. After that, the two girls quickly snap pictures as proof to tease and mock their victim. Once the cake smashing is over, everyone gathers around to play a game of truth. Soo-hyun is terrified that he will accidentally blurts out his private life secrets, and since he is someone who literally cannot lie, he keeps making up excuses to leave early. But time and time again, Youngran grabs him by the collar and forces him to stay. The fateful beer bottle spins and points right at him. Yeo Joon quickly seizes the opportunity to ask a tough question. Asking exactly how many friends he has, Soo-hyun has no choice but to honestly answer that the number is 2.5. Youngran absolutely refuses to sit still after realizing she lost her exclusive #1 spot. Meanwhile, Yeo Joon delusionally thinks he is also considered one of Soo-hyun's close friends. To his surprise, his friendship percentage is rated by the older guy at less than 0.1. It isn't until late at night that Young Ran finally lets Soo-hyun go home. Taking advantage of walking together, she bravely asks him a hypothetical question. She asks if he would open his heart to dating if he met a girl he liked. Without hesitating for a second, Soo-hyun bluntly answers no. He has absolutely no idea that inside the dorm, a lovesick girl is completely mesmerized, staring blankly at his picture. Feeling sad, Mi-ju realizes she cannot keep enduring this hopeless one-sided love forever. She immediately dashes out of the dorm to try and cut Soo-hyun off. However, after trying her hardest to gather all her courage, she ultimately only dares to shove a tiny lollipop into his hand. Then she instantly uses her flash speed to run away, because she is too embarrassed. Late into the night, the lively festival atmosphere still echoes across the campus. The food stalls are giving off mouth-watering and attractive smells. Yeo Joon and So-bin carelessly show off their affection in front of the crowd. Just to help out the person he loves, the rich kid Yeo Joon willingly lowers himself to work as a server. The group of toxic friends comes in to drink and eat without a single penny in their pockets to pay the bill. The moment they spot the rich kid, their eyes light up like car headlights. They exploit Yeo Joon's popularity and reputation as a gimmick to attract customers. They trick people into buying hangover juice. They even shamelessly drag him over, forcing him to be their advertising poster boy. But unfortunately for them, he coldly and flatly rejects them. Yeo Joon heads back to his table but suddenly cannot find his little girlfriend anywhere. At that moment, So-bin is hiding in a quiet spot to take a phone call. She receives incredibly joyful news that she gets to stay on as a professor's secretary. However, the professor hiring her isn't Professor Song, but but Yeo Joon, older brother. Naively unaware of the bitter feud between the two brothers, she happily and smilingly tells Yeo Joon about it. His face immediately darkens. He absolutely does not want his girlfriend working with his brother. Noticing her boyfriend's troubled expression, So-bin gently offers to share his burden, but he suddenly becomes cranky and gets mad at her for no reason. He coldly leaves her behind and storms off in frustration. So-bin feels incredibly empty and disappointed inside. She bitterly blames herself for not being trustworthy enough for her boyfriend to open up to. In another corner, without Yeo Joon around to attract customers, Jung-ho completely fails to sell a single drink. Not wanting to lose his investment money, he craftily switches to plan B. That involves exploiting the fame and reputation of Yeo Joon's girlfriend. The moment they spot So-bin walking by, they aggressively drag her to their drink stall. The rabid female fans of Yeo Joon, upon seeing his girlfriend, go completely wild like hungry tigers spotting their prey. Standing there helplessly, So-bin instantly becomes the target of the crowd. Vicious insults and attacks. A kind-hearted friend, watching the scene, immediately calls Yeo Joon to report the emergency. Hearing the news, he runs back as fast as his legs can carry him to rescue and protect his girlfriend. Seeing his fragile girlfriend being bullied by the mob, Yeo Joon finally drops his polite image. He points his finger and curses straight into the faces of the two awful seniors. Then, he coldly pulls out a stack of cash and throws it right in their faces, exactly as their despicable scheme intended. Feeling guilty and humiliated, John Jung-kook charges in and furiously punches Yeo Joon. This sends the kid into a panic as his traumatic memories of abuse flood back. He bites his lip and forces his weak body to stagger back to his feet. He steps forward to provoke and challenge the senior. Time after time, he gets violently knocked back to the ground. Standing on the sidelines, Jung-ho gets so terrified that he has to jump in and hold his aggressive friend back. Yeo Joon reaches out and tightly grabs So-bin's hand. Standing right in front of the entire crowd of crazy fangirls, he loudly and firmly declares her irreplaceable status as his official girlfriend. The two of them walk hand in hand away from the loud crowd to a quiet place. Yeo Joon sighs exhaustedly, admitting that this is his true self, a boy who grew up carrying massive psychological trauma. That is exactly why he was always terrified when he fell in love with So-bin. He was scared he wouldn't have enough strength to protect and shelter her. So-bin gently hugs him, fully accepting this flawed version of Yeo Joon. The two share a romantic kiss on the bridge. This kiss completely melts away all their previous misunderstandings and conflicts. At this moment, Soo-hyun is walking down the street handing out flyers to earn extra cash. But the second he picks up the phone and hears the news that Yeo Joon was beaten up, he drops his unfinished work. He sprints back to campus like his life depends on it. Rushing in and coming face to face with Jung-ho gang, Soo-hyun completely loses his cool. He wildly throws punches, beating the guy up to demand justice for Yeo Joon. After that incident, the couple Yeo Joon and So-bin officially make up. This time, it is So-bin's turn to carefully support Yeo Joon all the way to his front door. The two of them linger awkwardly in the apartment lobby, playfully bickering back and forth for a long while. Finally, So-bin gives in and steps inside the apartment to apply antiseptic to her boyfriend's wounds. Yeo Joon takes this chance to act like a spoiled child, whining and groaning in pain. He insists that his girlfriend gently stroke his hair to comfort him before he is willing to lie still. Exhausted, he eventually falls asleep on the sofa late at night. So-bin quietly approaches and reaches out to stroke his hair, but she suddenly remembers how he previously lashed out, saying he didn't want her digging into his past life. So, she quietly pulls her hand back and returns to her room. In reality, Yeo Joon wasn't fast asleep at all. Lying there, he realizes he is slowly pushing this relationship further away with his own hands. When he grabs his phone to check it, he sees a missed call from Soo-hyun. Yeo Joon hurriedly calls him back. Hearing that his younger friend is safe and sound, Soo-hyun coldly hangs up the phone. Even so, Yeo Joon feels incredibly happy because he received genuine care from the person he always looks up to as a biological older brother. Waking up the next morning, Yeo Joon suddenly comes down with a severe fever. Hearing the news, So-bin frantically runs to the pharmacy. She carefully describes her boyfriend's symptoms to the pharmacist to get the right medicine. Yeo Joon lies flat in bed, groaning. Normally, he would bite his lip and suffer through the illness completely alone. But now, things are different. He has So-bin right by his side to take care of him. This makes him feel unbelievably wonderful, even though his face is pale and sickly, he still tries to flash a bright smile while talking to her. Yeo Joon pulls out his phone to show So-bin the incredibly cute nickname he purposely set for her. He is super curious to know what she named him in her contacts. This question makes So-bin panic, and she quickly tries to hide her phone. The two of them playfully chase each other around the room. Finally, Yeo Joon manages to snatch her phone. His boring nickname is saved as freshman class of 21. She explains that she was afraid outsiders might accidentally see it and mistakenly gossip that she is his academic assistant. The strict assistant hands him his medicine and gives an order. The freshman has no choice but to obediently follow her command and drink it immediately. Suddenly, an unknown number calls. So-bin phone. Yeo Joon takes one quick glance and instantly knows it is his older brother number. Only now does he finally tell her the truth, that young professor is actually his biological older brother. He explains that when he was little, he was constantly beaten and brutally abused by his brother. That became a horrifying trauma he could never forget. That is exactly why he fiercely objected and didn't want his girlfriend working with that violent brother. Listening carefully to her boyfriend's hidden pain, So-bin feels her heart ache and steps closer to comfort him. Yeo Joon waves his hand, telling her not to get too close because he is terrified of passing his cold to her. But So-bin stubbornly keeps moving closer. As a result, he forcefully pulls her down to sit right next to him. This incredibly intimate physical contact makes So-bin blush deeply, her face burning hot. After cooking porridge and carefully taking care of her boyfriend, she gets ready to head back to the dorm to read tarot cards with her two roommates. Meanwhile, as soon as Yeo Joon feels a bit better, he wants to sit up and read a book. Unexpectedly, he stumbles upon Soo-hyun's notebook, which he still hasn't had the chance to return. He immediately picks up his phone and calls to set up a meeting to hand it back, but the older guy coldly refuses to meet him. So Yeo Joon makes a bossy decision to keep the notebook for himself as his own property. Listening to this, young Ran has to sigh and comment on the situation. She points out that Yeo Joon is the very first guy who has the power to make Soo-hyun actually worry about someone else's business. She enthusiastically decides to go out and buy a cup of coffee herself. She wants to help him stay more awake while working. Right after she turns her back and leaves, Miju sneaks over from out of nowhere. She acts all cute and whiny, begging for Soo-hyun's personal phone number, but he acts totally cold and adamantly refuses to give it to her. When young Ran returns to the room with the drinks, she accidentally catches a glimpse of Miju walking away in disappointment. Curious, she presses Soo-hyun for details. He then tells her the whole story from beginning to end. Feeling sympathetic, young Ran urges Soo-hyun to open his heart and give himself a chance to be loved. However, he continues to flat out reject the idea. He makes the low excuse that he currently has neither the free time nor the energy. He cannot afford to develop romantic feelings for absolutely anyone. He confesses that, just like in the past, he also used to secretly like her. But because he was so poor, he couldn't provide for her or do anything nice for her, so he had to give up. Hearing those words leaves young Ran completely stunned and frozen in shock. But facing her, Soo-hyun maintains a very calm attitude. For him, all those romantic feelings have already faded into the past. Back to Yeo Joon. After everything that happened, he has truly changed a lot. He firmly cuts off his partying lifestyle and completely stops financially supporting his toxic friends. He becomes incredibly strong, daring to stand up and face the bullies who used to torment him. Jun Jung-kook gets furious when he hears Yeo Joon has filed a police report regarding the assault. Being a coward, he immediately starts screaming and demands to drag Soo-hyun down with him. He insists that Soo-hyun must go to jail with him, claiming the torn wound on his mouth was caused by Soo-hyun fighting back. Hearing this, Yeo Joon's eyes become sharper and colder than ever before. He strictly warns Jung-kook not to be stupid enough to intentionally mess with Soo-hyun. Back in class, the senior still holds on to his bitter grudge. He constantly gathers people behind Yeo Joon back to trash talk and humiliate him. Normally, Yeo Joon wouldn't care about those garbage words, but when he accidentally hears the guy bring up Soo-hyun's name, he doesn't hesitate to turn right around and fight back. Right at this tense moment, Yeo Joon slowly walks into the classroom. The slippery Jung-kook takes this chance to loudly mock Yeo Joon as a total liar. He exposes the fact that Yeo Joon previously lied about Soo-hyun currently living with him. He claims the kid only used that as an excuse so he wouldn't have to let his jobless toxic friends crash at his place. Standing outside and hearing this, Soo-hyun steps in and loudly declares the truth. He officially confirms that the information about him living with Yeo Joon is absolutely true. After class, Yeo Joon tails Soo-hyun like a puppy. He chatters non-stop, thanking him because in order to defend him, the older guy actually dared to beat up Jungkook. Feeling awkward and not knowing how to explain himself, Soo-hyun suddenly gets a phone call from his younger brother with the news that their mother is suffering from severe back pain. The surgery costs way too much, so she refuses to do it, ignoring the doctor warning that her legs could become paralyzed. Yeo Joon sighs. His only option is to work himself to the bone to earn money and take care of his mother. At this time, the two girls who secretly like him are drinking beer together. Both Miju and Youngran admit to each other that they are secretly in love with Soo-hyun. Miju plans with Youngran that they will both confess their feelings to him. The choice will be completely up to him, but at least they will finally get the secret off their chests. What exhausts girls is emotions, but the ultimate pressure for guys is finances. Soo-hyun applies for a leave of absence from school, just to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Gu-hyun comes to campus looking for his brother. He feels completely heartbroken knowing his older brother has to sleep in a storage room. He also wants to drop out of school to earn money and help out. Soo-hyun yells at him, saying he is working to earn money to take care of him and their mother. Acting like this is completely betraying his brother. Hard work, not helping it. Not knowing what to do, Gu-hyun walks away, only to be stopped by Yeo Joon. A short while later, Soo-hyun gets the news that his brothers somehow got enough money for their mother's surgery. He sighs, realizing he owes Yeo Joon yet another massive favor. Staring at the kid phone number, Soo-hyun doesn't dare to call. Because of his mother illness, he had to throw away his pride and rely on Yeo Joon, hoping he can quickly scrape together enough money to pay him back. Soo-hyun reluctantly takes his leave of absence form to his professor. The professor doesn't approve it right away, but instead invites his student to a meal. He then reveals that in his own past he was also so poor that he had to drop out of school 3 times. Sometimes, it isn't about pride, but because a person's ego is just too big to accept help from others. So, one must open their heart to accept help, endure the hardships, and once you become successful, you will have the chance to come back and repay them later. Soo-hyun finally agrees to open up. After the meal, he actively seeks out Yeo Joon. The kid thinks the older guy will be mad at him for meddling in his family affairs. But no, this time, Soo-hyun lowers his pride and sincerely thanks Yeo Joon. Then, he pours out all the immense pressure he has been carrying all by himself for so long. Yeo Joon also opens up about the deep traumas in his own life. He admits his life is also a complete mess, so he hopes Soo-hyun won't feel insecure anymore. On the way back, both of them firmly believe that their misfortunes will eventually come to an end. Back to the girls. Miju wants So-bin to help create an opportunity for her to get close to Soo-hyun. Meanwhile, it is much easier for Youngran, who can simply call and ask to meet him. In class, Yeo Joon sees Soo-hyun dozing off. He wants to wake him up but is stopped by So-bin. After class, she hands him a copy of her lecture notes as a thank you. Soo-hyun proactively invites the two of them out to eat. Both of them picked cheap dishes, making him feel quite embarrassed. Miju walks over. Following the plan, So-bin invites her to join them for the meal. Having the chance to sit next to Soo-hyun, Miju easily asks him to stay behind and talk behind the school. She gathers all her courage and confesses her love to him. However, he rejects her instantly. Feeling humiliated, Miju collapses to the ground. Soo-hyun has absolutely no idea how to comfort someone. After couch surfing for a while, he finally has to pack his bags and leave. At the same time, Yeo Joon and So-bin are on a date when they accidentally pull out Soo-hyun's notebook. They flip it open to the exact page where Soo-hyun wrote the date of his end. Coincidentally, it is exactly today. Suddenly, Yeo Joon's bank account receives a money transfer from Soo-hyun. Terrified that the older guy might do something foolish, he immediately sprints off to find him. He runs like the wind to the bottom of the bridge, so panicked that he mistakenly grabs a stranger thinking it is Soo-hyun. In reality, Soo-hyun isn't that stupid. He just found a patch of grass to sleep on for the night. In his dream, he reunites with his father, a police officer who died in the line of duty. His father hugs and comforts his son. Finally, Soo-hyun allows himself to be weak and bursts into tears. When he wakes up and is about to leave the grass patch for somewhere else, he runs into Yeo Joon. The kid is incredibly overjoyed to see that he is safe. Noticing Soo-hyun's luggage, Yeo Joon begs him to come live with him, helping to turn his previous lie into reality. Soo-hyun feels as if his hope for life has returned. He almost bursts into tears from being so moved. This time, he doesn't reject Yeo Joon anymore. To celebrate getting a new roommate, Yeo Joon prepares a massive, luxurious feast full of delicious dishes, making Soo-hyun feel quite awkward, but all that awkwardness melts away the second he takes a bite of the delicious meat. Soo-hyun feels this meal is way too expensive, but Yeo Joon doesn't mind the cost. He just considers it as Soo-hyun helping him fulfill his wish of having a roommate. For now, Soo-hyun sleeps on the sofa. Yeo Joon carefully brings a blanket to cover him. After that, he texts So-bin to apologize for leaving her alone earlier. At this moment, So-bin is at the dorm having a late-night snack with her roommates. Mi-ju is totally heartbroken after being rejected, feeling incredibly sad. Only Young-ran truly understands her pain, hugging and comforting her. That night, Mi-ju cannot sleep. She cannot help but confide in Young-ran about confessing to Soo-hyun and getting rejected. Young-ran admits she fine witnessed the whole thing. But instead of feeling happy, she actually admires Mi-ju a lot. She respects the younger girl for daring to speak her heart, whereas she doesn't have the courage to confess, terrified that if she does, she won't gain anything and will only lose Soo-hyun as her best friend. The next day, So-bin and Soo-hyun share a class. After class, So-bin asks Soo-hyun about his new living situation with Yeo Joon. Soo-hyun feels incredibly flustered because every single morning, Yeo Joon prepares incredibly expensive meals for him. Just hearing the price of the food makes him choke. He begs So-bin to convince Yeo Joon to stop constantly buying him so much expensive food. Yeo Joon even washes and neatly folds his clothes. The kid also came up with a prank, tying his underwear to balloons and leaving them outside his door, just to embarrass him. Meanwhile, Yeo Joon's own closet is overflowing with clothes. He has every type and style imaginable just for white shirts alone. As he walks away, Soo-hyun keeps muttering and complaining about Yeo Joon's wasteful spending. The two girls walk outside and spot Yeo Joon arriving at school. This time, Soo-hyun actually returns his wave. Up in the office, Professor Song still hasn't given up on flirting with Jun-won, but unexpectedly, she runs into someone who doesn't care about offending people. He bluntly tells her that she is much older than him, leaving Professor Song feeling completely exposed and embarrassed. Right after she storms off in a huff, Jun-won watches the video of his younger brother getting beaten up at the Spring Festival. He clenches his fists, trying to stay calm, but his fury is completely obvious on his face. He still couldn't hide it from So-bin. Jun-won asks her why Yeo Joon was beaten. So-bin honestly tells him that she knows they are brothers, and Yeo Joon got into the fight to protect her. Hearing So-bin say that Yeo Joon personally admitted he was Jun-won's brother completely shocks him. Later, So-bin tells Yeo Joon about how worried Jun-won looked. He doesn't believe it. He assumes his brother is just faking it to make Yeo Joon feel better. So-bin suggests they take a trip to the beach this weekend. Yeo Joon agrees. Elsewhere, the other professor approaches Professor Song. He seems to really like his senior colleague, but she doesn't have any feelings for him. As for her thesis, she has already deleted the copied paragraph from So-bin. After school, So-bin runs into Chan-ki again. He still wants to be close like before, but she can only view him as a normal friend. Actually, Chan-ki went to see Yeo Joon this morning. His only simple request was for the kid to protect So-bin well, and absolutely never make her cry. Yeo Joon felt this warning was completely unnecessary. She is his girlfriend, so of course he will protect her perfectly, without needing anyone else to remind him. However, the reality is that Yeo Joon cannot always be right by her side to protect her. Seeing her walking all alone, Jungkook shadily and secretly tails her to an isolated area. He suddenly lunges out and tightly grabs So-bin's arm, terrifying her completely. Jungkook uses deceitful words and makes up a fake story. He claims that he and his two friends, Jung-ho and Hae-ji, want to meet up to apologize to So-bin for bullying her so many times. Using that excuse, he successfully tricks her into entering his department research room. So-bin sits and waits, thinking the other two are on their way, completely unaware that she has fallen into Jungkook's trap and is being live-streamed directly onto the internet. He wants to humiliate and smear her reputation simply to get revenge on Yeo Joon. Unfortunately for him, this livestream is accidentally seen by Jung-ho himself. He is horrified and terrified by his friend Jungkook's reckless and crazy actions. Right at that moment, Yeo Joon happens to be walking by and sees it on the internet. Seeing the image of his beloved girlfriend trapped in Jungkook's hidden camera, Yeo Joon loses his mind, screams out demanding the room address, and sprints like crazy toward the business administration department. Inside the room, a trembling So-bin receives a phone call from Yeo Joon. She reaches out to answer it, but Jungkook snatches the phone and throws it away. They struggle back and forth. Terrified, So-bin tries to leave, but he aggressively grabs her. With a loud crash, Yeo Joon kicks the door wide open and storms in to save her. He flies in and delivers a brutal punch straight to Jungkook's face. Just as he is about to throw a second punch, he flashes back to his own traumatic past of being beaten to a pulp. That is the exact reason why he simply cannot bring himself to brutalize someone else now. He spares the guy, but the guy isn't going to let him go so easily. Just as Jungkook grabs an object and charges forward to attack Yeo Joon, he is suddenly kicked flying backward by Young Ran from behind. Right behind her are the two building security guards. They rush in, grab Jungkook by the neck, pin his arms back, and drag him away. Yeo Joon and So-bin breathe a sigh of relief, knowing they are finally safe. As for Jungkook, this stunt guarantees he will be spending a long time in court. Young Ran showed up to save the day just in time, all thanks to Jung-ho giving her the tip. The big guy seems to have turned over a new leaf, acknowledging Young Ran as his boss, and even getting a tarot reading from her. Young Ran happens to draw a card, indicating her love life will blossom soon. At the same time, So-bin is treating Yeo Joon wounds. She apologizes for being stupid enough to trust a bad person, causing him to get hurt. He doesn't blame her, he just feels that it was his own personal grudge that put So-bin in danger. On the way back, Yeo Joon runs into his older brother. Junwon tells Yeo Joon that if anyone bullies him, he needs to fight back. But the kid doesn't want to. When he was little and got beaten by his older brother, he could only endure it, so he will do the same now. This breaks Junwon's heart as he watches his little brother walk away. He clearly has something incredibly difficult to say, but cannot voice it because he ran into his brother. Yeo Joon suffers from terrible nightmares that night and cannot sleep. He hugs his pillow tightly, shivering. A little later, Soo-hyun comes home. Hearing the groans from Yeo Joon's room, he walks in to find the kid curled up on the floor. Soo-hyun hesitates, reaching his hand out, but ultimately chooses to comfort Yeo Joon. The next day, So-bin excitedly gets dressed up, ready for their beach trip, but when she calls him, she gets an apology, canceling the trip. Worried, So-bin goes to Yeo Joon's place and finds him curled up in bed. She desperately wants to know what happened to him, but since he previously said he didn't want to share too much of his life with her, she has no choice but to leave. Feeling completely useless to her boyfriend makes So-bin feel incredibly sad. Seeing her in tears, Chan-ki gets extremely worried. He tries to ask her what is wrong, but she won't answer. Chan-ki feels totally useless. When they were kids, he promised So-bin mother that he would protect her, but now she pushes him away and he has no idea how to protect her anymore. Depressed, he sits down and drinks until he is completely wasted. A while later, he spots Young Ran sitting on the bench next to him. He gathers his liquid courage and strikes up a conversation. He even flirts and asks for her phone number. Luckily, he doesn't get punched by Young Ran. The next morning, Yeo Joon feels much better. When Soo-hyun tells him, he finally realizes So-bin came looking for him yesterday. He immediately runs to campus to find her. Seeing that he doesn't seem to want to talk, Yeo Joon quickly apologizes. He explains that he couldn't go on the trip yesterday because something terrifying happened to him, and he didn't want his girlfriend to see him in such a weak state. So Bin immediately hugs and comforts her boyfriend. This semester, the professor wants to organize a trip centered around a research topic on youth, but sadly, the notice has been up for days, and not a single student has signed up. While the disappointed professor is taking a walk with Professor Song, Young Ran reads the notice. She calls to invite So-bin. So-bin invites Miju and Yeo Joon. Yeo Joon then convinces Soo-hyun to join. Young Ran also casually invites Chan-ki along. Just like that, all 6 of them gather in front of the professor. He hands Soo-hyun his own credit card, so the group of friends can have a perfect, fully funded trip. Professor Song also gets dragged into joining their campfire game. It would have been incredibly fun if Yeo Joon hadn't been triggered by his childhood abuse memories. They play the finger-folding game. Whoever folds all their fingers down first loses. When it is Chan-ki's turn, he asks which of the guys currently has a girl they like present here. Chan-ki, Yeo Joon, and even Soo-hyun all fold a finger. Soo-hyun looks incredibly shy. Flustered, he asks the professor to quickly move on to the next game. The next game is confessing your deepest pains to the fire, letting it burn away your sorrows. The professor's sorrow is his girlfriend who got severely ill and left him behind. Yeo Joon haunting trauma is his older brother. Back when he was brutally abused and covered in facial bruises, his older brother told him to never call those two people their parents again, because they didn't deserve it. After that, Junwon walked away. Only now does Yeo Joon remember that back then, his older brother locked himself in his room, crying and apologizing to him. Soo-hyun steps forward. Yeo Joon tells him that his biggest fear right now is that his memories might be completely wrong. Soo-hyun encourages Yeo Joon to go find the real truth. So that very night, the kid catches a taxi back to the city to find his brother. Now he finally remembers that the person who constantly beat him to a pulp wasn't his brother, but his father. Yeo Joon cannot handle the fact that he wrongfully blamed his brother all this time. For the very first time, Junwon says the words, "I am sorry, little brother." He was also a victim of their father, forced to live under his insanely strict rules. Because of that, he didn't know how to properly love his younger brother. All he knew was to warn the kid not to consider that hellhole a family. Only by perfectly obeying his parents could he prevent them from putting even more pressure on Yeo Joon. Yeo Joon bursts into tears and thanks his brother. It turns out that all this time, he was always protected by his family member. Finally, the two brothers are able to smile at each other. This is what youth is all about. Once you lift the heavy burden off your heart, life naturally becomes much easier. Youth is being guided by good mentors who give advice that changes the way you live. It is the listening ear and shared moments with true friends. It is staying up all night, tossing and turning, thinking about your secret crush, wondering if the girl he likes is actually you. It is worrying about your lover, but being too afraid to ask, fearing you might bother them. Living together, Soo-hyun gradually gets infected by Yeo Joon's flashy habits. The kid is determined to make him learn how to love himself more. Later, Yeo Joon arrives at school. So Bin is still very gloomy because she cannot share anything with her boyfriend. Yeo Joon apologizes for making her worry. He tells her that his relationship with his older brother has gotten much better. It seems like their lives are entering a bright new chapter. During Professor Song class, the couple takes turns, praising Soo-hyun's good traits to the heavens. This makes even Professor Song suggest getting to know him, leaving him shy and completely speechless. In the other professor class, Jung-ho and his friend actively step up to make peace with Yeo Joon. Yeo Joon doesn't hold grudges either. The moment he sees So Bin, he smiles and lets the past go. After class, all three of them leave together. Mi-ju seeks out Soo-hyun one last time. She wants to know if the girl he likes is actually Young Ran. Soo-hyun doesn't say a word, but the answer is clearly written all over his face. Mi-ju decides to officially give up on him, but before doing so, she wants him to know the reason she fell for him. That day at the supermarket, he didn't pay attention to her pathetic and miserable state. Because of that, he gave her a deep sense of safety when she was around him. After pouring her heart out, she gifts him a portrait she drew of him as a final goodbye. Back to the Yeo Joon and So Bin couple. Today they plan to eat at his place, but right at the front door, they run into Yeo Joon's mother. The woman clearly shows her disgust toward the girl standing next to her son. Yeo Joon has no choice but to apologize and tells So Bin to head home first. While he goes upstairs with his mother, he knows this woman only came looking for him because she is exhausted and needs a punching bag to vent her anger. However, she doesn't realize that her son no longer needs a mother like her. She loses her temper and reveals her true motive. She is here to find her eldest son. She hasn't been able to contact Junwon for days. Yeo Joon screams at her, demanding she stop bothering his brother. She goes completely crazy. Her son spots the dark bruises on her arms, caused by her husband's abuse. But she simply begs him not to tell anyone, and then walks away. Yeo Joon calls his older brother. Junwon has known about their mother being abused for a long time, but he cannot help her because that is the life she actively chooses to stay in. Now that Yeo Joon has Soo-hyun, he doesn't have to hide all his worries and endure them alone anymore. He can finally confide in his friend. In Soo-hyun's memories, his father was a man who could protect society but couldn't protect his own family. He died in the line of duty, leaving the family in absolute poverty. He and his younger brother had to take turns dropping out of school just to survive. Meanwhile, Yeo Joon's father is a domestic abuser. He is an extreme patriarch who forces everyone to do exactly as he says. However, Yeo Joon's biggest regret is wrongfully blaming his older brother. The thing the patriarchal father takes the most pride in is raising his successful eldest son. Hearing his driver report on his youngest son's situation, the father orders him to keep a close eye on Yeo Joon. But when the driver spots Junwon, he gets too scared to keep tailing Yeo Joon. Back to Youngran, she is so clueless that she doesn't even realize the person Soo-hyun likes is actually her, mistakenly thinking he is dating Mi-ju. Having no other options, she confides in Professor Song. The professor encourages Youngran to boldly confess to the guy. Fueled by this encouragement, Youngran sprints as fast as she can to find Soo-hyun. But when she finally meets him, she chickens out and just challenges him to a foot race instead. On another note, not only is Yeo Joon having mother issues, but So-bin also has deep trauma regarding the mother who abandoned her when she was 8 years old. Today, her mother suddenly called, leaving her completely lost on how to face it. Yeo Joon holds So-bin's hand. He wants them both to let go of their painful pasts and build a new, happy future together. A soft kiss acts as a deposit for their future happiness. After that, he invites her back to his place for a barbecue. Looking at the massive feast, Soo-hyun immediately starts calculating the cost. He probably won't even dare to digest the food after eating it. After receiving emotional support, So-bin finally gains the courage to go see her mother. Truth be told, she doesn't hate her. She knows her mother left because she was deeply hurt. Both mother and daughter say their apologies. Just this one phrase is enough to heal all their psychological wounds. After resolving everything, she returns to Yeo Joon's embrace. Perhaps they were destined to meet simply to heal each other. Hand in hand, they head to their next class, but are suddenly blocked by the driver. He follows the chairman's orders to drag Yeo Joon back home. Having no other choice, Yeo Joon has to let go of So-bin's hand. She goes to work as Junwon's secretary and accidentally lets slip that Yeo Joon was just hauled away by the driver. Terrified, Junwon drops all his work and speeds back home. Childhood memories flash non-stop in his mind. Back then, he held evidence of their father abusing his younger brother, using it to blackmail the man into never laying a hand on Yeo Joon again. He promised to obey every single demand and become the perfect son as long as the father spared Yeo Joon. At this moment, Yeo Joon is forced to face his demon of a father. The man watches the video of his son getting beaten up, and instead of caring, screams at him for dragging down Junwon's prestigious professor career. He orders Yeo Joon to move back home tomorrow so he can be strictly controlled. Yeo Joon refuses, so the father stands up, threateningly forcing Yeo Joon to step into the punishment room. Junwon tries to drive as fast as humanly possible. At home, a trembling Yeo Joon takes slow steps before being grabbed by the hair and thrown inside by his father. The man rolls up his sleeves, starting to smash everything and take all his rage out on Yeo Joon. Junwon arrives home, screaming like a madman and pounding on the door. The moment he kicks the door open, he witnesses his father raising a heavy trophy, ready to hurl it at his little brother. He glares fiercely at his father, terrifying the man. Junwon orders Yeo Joon out of the room, then grabs his father by the throat. He sold his entire life to this man in exchange for his brother's safety, yet the man broke his promise. He throws his father onto the desk, ready to end it all. The mother runs back, frantically pounding on the door. Yeo Joon remembers how, when they were kids and his brother locked himself in his room, their mother would panic while completely ignoring Yeo Joon's existence. Even now, she still doesn't care about him. Yeo Joon frantically calls for help to save Junwon. So-bin cannot reach Yeo Joon, so she calls Soo-hyun to check, but he also has no idea what is going on with the kid. By now, Junwon has brought Yeo Joon back to his apartment building. He decides he will completely shatter his father, perfect politician image and expose all of his crimes. His only regret is that he couldn't protect his little brother. Yeo Joon promises his brother that from now on, he will live a good life, so he begs Junwon to finally do what he truly wants, love the girl he likes, step out of that forced, suffocating past. Yeo Joon tries to stay strong as he sends his brother off, but the second he steps inside his apartment, he breaks down sobbing like a child. Soo-hyun doesn't know what else to do but tightly pull Yeo Joon into a hug. Yeo Joon locks himself in his apartment for days, So-bin doesn't receive a single call from him, and even though she is incredibly anxious, she doesn't dare to call him first. During class, she feels completely empty. After class, Soo-hyun waits to walk home with So-bin. He is worried that without Yeo Joon around, she will feel lonely, but the moment they step outside, Yeo Joon appears. He walks right up, pulling So-bin into a tight hug and expressing how much he missed her over the past few days. Being understanding, So-bin doesn't blame her boyfriend. Both she and Soo-hyun simultaneously offer him their lecture notes to copy. So-bin playfully forces him to choose between her and Soo-hyun. He shakes his head, refusing to choose, and simply grabs both notebooks. So-bin receives a phone call from Junwon. While waiting for her, the two guys sit on a stone bench and talk. Yeo Joon doesn't feel embarrassed about crying his eyes out in front of Soo-hyun because he has also seen the older guy cry plenty of times. Both of them feel incredibly lucky to have met each other. Thanks to the other person, they completely change their mindset about relationships. When running into Jungkook again, Yeo Joon puts on a serious face, wanting to personally handle their grudge. After learning his lesson from being thrown in the police station, Jungkook seems to have massively changed his attitude. He shows genuine remorse, bowing his head and apologizing to Yeo Joon. He sadly announces that he plans to drop out of school soon because he feels he has no face left to look at anyone in class. Yeo Joon generously forgives Jungkook. He advises the senior to start living a responsible and serious life. He tells him not to just drop out like it is nothing, but to stay in school with everyone else. Hearing this, Jungkook is so moved he almost cries. The bitter feud between the two guys is finally resolved peacefully. Jungkook goes back to hanging out with his best friend Jungho. The two walk back to class together. Jungkook bravely stands in front of all his classmates and publicly apologizes to So-bin. He even drops to his knees and yells loudly, just to prove his absolute sincerity. Feeling embarrassed, So-bin has to run down and cover his mouth, confirming she forgave him a long time ago. The semester is coming to an end. The professor assigns a new group project. The groups remain exactly the same. After class, Soo-hyun wants to hold a meeting to assign topics. Unexpectedly, this time Jungkook eagerly volunteers to pay out of his own pocket to treat everyone to a meal as an apology. Seeing his sincerity, So-bin agrees. The others have no objections either. At the restaurant, Soo-hyun gets swept up in everyone's shared enthusiasm. Relationships are truly magical. People who once hated each other can now sit together, laughing and talking happily. The next day at school, Soo-hyun runs into young Ron. She drops hints about a guy she is about to go on a blind date with, just to test his reaction. Surprisingly, he encourages her to go for it. This makes young Ron incredibly frustrated. She seeks out Chan-ki to vent. Both of them are completely unable to let go of their secret crushes, so they make a pact. Whenever they feel the most lonely and empty, they will call each other. Back to the patriarchal father, his ultimate fate is being exposed in the newspapers. He loses both his prestigious career and his family. Now, when he returns home, he has no wife or children waiting for him. The perfect model family image he built crumbles in an instant, leaving him unable to accept reality. Devastated, the father drinks until he is wasted, then furiously storms over to find his youngest son. Yeo Joon is frozen in absolute terror, but finally he cannot hold it in anymore, and screams that everything turning out this way is entirely his father's fault. The father tries to raise his hand to hit his son but gets blocked by Yeo Joon. The timid Yeo Joon of the past is dead. The current Yeo Joon is now incredibly strong. In his fit of rage, the father slowly realizes his massive mistakes. He goes back to find his eldest son. He claims that he only wanted to protect their current wealthy lifestyle because he traded his own life for it. Junwon gives his father a harsh reality check. That isn't love, it is pure selfishness. He tried to forcefully control everything until it all shattered, and the brutal truth now is that he has lost absolutely everything. Returning to campus life, young Ran starts missing Soo-hyun again, so she decides to call Chan-ki to vent, but the call won't go through because, on the other end, he is also trying to call her number. Having no other choice, young Ran heads back to her dorm to drink beer with So-bin. One-sided love is truly exhausting. Meanwhile, the professor starts shifting his romantic attention toward his teaching assistant, leaving Professor Song feeling a tiny bit jealous. On the other hand, Jungkook has undergone an incredibly commendable, positive change. Not only does he constantly check up on and take care of So-bin, but he also flatly refuses to accept any pocket money from the toxic girl Hee-ji. The day for the group project presentation is fast approaching. Seeing other groups present incredibly creative projects, Soo-hyun worries their group won't be able to secure first place. To make their presentation more impressive, Yeo Joon suggests they recruit a famous person on campus. The person he has his sights on is Senior Kim from the journalism department. Soo-hyun argues that the topic of campus youth is way too boring and won't impress the professor at all. Yeo Joon, however, thinks this presentation topic will definitely be exciting enough to leave a mark. The two completely clash, so the group fails to reach a unified decision. Because of their morning argument, things are super awkward between the two guys when they get home that night. Both want to make peace, but the moment they lock eyes, Soo-hyun immediately runs to hide in the bathroom. Yeo Joon decides to break the ice by cooking a delicious pot of spicy tteokbokki, forcing Soo-hyun to drop his pride and sit down to eat. But barely a few nice words are exchanged before they start arguing about the presentation again. They argue all night until the next morning on the way to class, leaving So-bin stuck in the middle, feeling unbelievably awkward. Just as she doesn't know what to do, Luckily, Soo-hyun gets a phone call and has to leave early. It is Gu-hyun coming to see his brother. He hands Soo-hyun his father's old journal and convinces him that he is grown up enough to work part-time and pay for his own tuition. So he begs his brother to continue chasing his dream of becoming a police officer, just like he told their father years ago. Looking at the journal, Soo-hyun remembers how, when he entered middle school, his father took a picture of him in a police uniform, and it is still kept inside that very book. At the same time, Yeo Joon also receives a phone call from his father. He tells So-bin to go ahead without him. After the call, Yeo Joon's face looks extremely troubled. When he reunites with Soo-hyun, he holds him back, wanting to talk, but Soo-hyun refuses because their group meeting is about to start. Yeo Joon has to swallow his words. During this meeting, Yeo Joon doesn't argue with Soo-hyun anymore, but instead merges both of their ideas together. He suggests letting every member share their own youth story, encompassing both the happy and the incredibly dark moments. Soo-hyun opens the floor first, then Jung-ho. Next is Jungkook's story. So-bin also contributes her experience. Even Haiji has to drop her perfect image to share her struggles. Finally, everyone stares at Yeo Joon. He is always the one who fiercely hides his past, yet this time, Yeo Joon wants to pour out everything hidden in his heart. It is his past of being brutally abused by his father. It is a childhood of never being acknowledged by his family. But luckily, the brightest light in his life was finding genuine, true friends. As a reward for Yeo Joon becoming so strong, Soo-hyun decides to write the report for him. But Yeo Joon insists on writing it himself, leading the two of them to fight over the laptop all night long. Finally, the next day, the report is complete. Everyone is incredibly satisfied. The group decides to go big. Instead of a simple presentation, they shoot a whole youth short film. Senior Kim represents a perfectly beautiful youth. While working together, the group naturally creates an incredibly beautiful and intimate picture of true friendship. The next day, Yeo Joon represents the group to present their topic, youth, the light, and the darkness. Inside every student, Soo-hyun realizes that Senior Kim character acting alongside Joon on the screen is actually a female version, heavily based on him. This proves that his memory has deeply and meticulously carved itself into Yeo Joon's heart. Bit by bit, through all their painful and vulnerable moments, the two of them stood side by side. Soo-hyun brought warmth to a love-starved child, while Yeo Joon helped a numb, emotionless guy regain his feelings. The absolute sincerity of their presentation touches the hearts of their classmates and even the professor. So-bin doesn't forget to display the behind-the-scenes footage. It shows the moments when teammates like Haiji, Jung-ho, and Jungkook enthusiastically pitched in to help. She wants to show the professor that the entire team worked hard and deserves the exact same high grade. The group successfully wins first place for the presentation. Back to Professor Song. She finally decides to fire the deceitful student who stole So-bin documents. After that, she goes to her teaching assistant to congratulate her on her upcoming marriage. Professor Song mistakenly thinks the groom is the male professor, making her feel quite sad. She goes to talk to him one last time. He used to pursue her, making her heart flutter, but she didn't know how to seize the opportunity. Hearing this, the professor is totally confused because he is actually still actively pursuing her. Realizing this, Professor Song instantly cheers up and takes the initiative to invite him out to dinner. The friend group also gathers for a celebration dinner for their massively successful presentation. Only now does Soo-hyun finally speak his heart. He admits he has viewed Yeo Joon as a little brother for a long time. Every morning, he wakes him up so he won't be late for class, and he tirelessly scrubs and cleans the house for him. On the way to school, he constantly reminds the kid to study hard to get good grades. Only now does everyone acknowledge that Soo-hyun actually has feelings too. After getting drunk, everyone tries their best to pour out their hidden thoughts. When the party ends and So-bin is heading back, she runs into Chan-ki. He came to see her to say his final goodbye before enlisting in the military. For the very first time, Chan-ki shows So-bin his weak and vulnerable side. Truth be told, she has wanted to make peace with Chan-ki for a long time. The two of them pull each other into a tight final hug. Chan-ki counts to 3, then runs away just to hide his falling tears. On another side, Young Ran finally gathers all her courage to confess that she has liked Soo-hyun for a very long time. It is just that she never dared to say it, and now she missed her chance. Therefore, she will become his absolute best friend. After that, she and Chan-ki run a few laps around the soccer field to release the sadness of letting go of their secret crushes. Meanwhile, Soo-hyun heads home with Yeo Joon. That night, the two continue their heart-to-heart chat. Soo Hyun reveals his plan for the first time. He plans to bring his mother to live in the city with him after summer break. Yeo Joon feels a brief flash of sadness, knowing he won't get to live with his older brother figure anymore. But right after that, a few quick jokes from Soo-hyun make him burst into happy laughter. 2 months later, the new semester begins. The two are still in the same class, but this time, the person who spills coffee on the other shoes is Soo-hyun. Yeo Joon perfectly mimics the grumpy, strict attitude Soo-hyun had back then. It isn't until So-bin returns with coffee that the two finally drop the act. After class, Soo-hyun proactively leaves a bottle of vitamins on Young-ran's desk. Life is like a spinning wheel. It rolls for a while, and eventually returns to the starting point. The pure emotions of youth are like a spring breeze blowing past, carrying the scent of someone's hair. During your college years, you can be absolutely anyone, even the weirdo in other people's eyes. However, the smile on your lips will always remain the most beautiful filter of your youth. Don't hide your true self. Connect with good friends. This is the beautiful youth story of Yeo Joon, So-bin, and Soo-hyun. The movie recap ends here. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel to catch our next masterpiece. Goodbye, and see you next time.